Yeah, we were talking about it earlier before we opened the rooms. We were talking a little bit about that. Jeffrey was able to play a fine YouTube example that shows you exactly how close those songs are, and they are very close.
Inspired by Rocky.
That's
No, it's more than
like,
inspired.
I even know the conversation that happens in Hollywood that is get as close to this piece of music as you can without getting us sued. And I've been in those conversations. I might have even said that at times.
I've done some of those.
Yeah,
for some people.
Yeah, so
sound alikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody, welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you can ask questions there. You have to come to Makana, or not Makana, but you have to come to the Zoom link, which you'll see there. And then in the Zoom link, you'll see a place to go to Makana. And then you can ask questions there. If you're here as an attendee and you see all these panelists and you listen to us and you think that you may know more than us, you might. And we would love to have you join us for the conversation. So all you have to do is be here before 6:40 a.m. Between 6:40 and 6:43, we do the mic checks. Once we start the mic checks, we're not going to bring anybody else in. So you just have to be here by then. Also, we're looking for questions. If you're an attendee, that's still how you participate. This show is created by the audience. And so I think it's probably the only one that is as pure as it is about being created by the audience. We literally just answer your questions, or we discuss your questions. And so it is very important that you ask questions. The best thing to do is to think about those between shows, and then ask them, and we'll discuss them. So right now is a good time to ask those questions. It's even better before the show starts, but right now is a good time as well. And then it's set between 7 and 8. It's just general questions. You can ask whatever you want around media production, virtual production. At 8 o'clock, we usually have some kind of vertical that we're going to talk about specifically. Every Saturday, we talk about education. So we'll be talking about just virtual education, media production for education. It could be e-learning, K through 12, all of the in between. So those are all there. If you do that in Makana, you can now tag for second hour. So you'll see a tag option when you ask your question. You can tag it for the second hour so that Bill doesn't have to do so much sorting. So so go ahead and put that in there and tag those for the second hour, and we'll do a kind of a changing of the guard. We're going to try to stop at 6. We're going to try to stop at 7:50. We keep on saying that and then not doing it, but we're going to every week we're more optimistic. So anyway, so let's go ahead and jump into the questions, Bill.
Okay, A. Mitchells has posted a doozy here as the first one, and then
A. Mitchells posted
doozy. Thank you.
A. Mitchells?
Yeah, but he was nice, and he said,
where did we see that coming? Where did we see that coming?
Knock out the note. I could do that to shorten it, but no, you have data in there that may help somebody learn about this. So we're going to do the whole thing. Here we go.
Yeah.
How do wireless?
He's our ringer, by the way. A. Mitchells is our ringer for, we just know that we're going to get a couple good questions no matter what every day because A. Mitchells is around. So,
absolutely.
Anyway,
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. How do wireless N and AX work in terms of the total number of device connections allowed? Does it really allow more connects as a different Wi-Fi tech, or is it just summing connections of the various radios and antennas in a box array compared to Wi-Fi A and BG? What's the total number allowed? And thanks. And then the note, reference only, Wi-Fi A and BG allow a maximum of 25 per radio, 24 actual, and increase connections by packing more radios in the same box, or increase connected speeds by increasing radios in the device and using more connections in the wireless access point per device. Discuss.
This is
32.
All of us are like, he may have stumped us on this one. I don't actually know enough information to talk to it. I think that I would need to bring. This is an Aaron question. We'll have to wait for Aaron to talk through that, or we'll get some guys from Straight Up or something like that to come in. We could do that. We could talk about networking. We could have a networking hour where we bring some Aaron and a couple other folks that are really strong in that area to do that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, networking is not my specialty, but I do know that it does allow more signal to be carried, more data to be carried because of the multi-spectrum. Now, the number of devices, no clue.
We'll come back to that. Bring that question up again if you see some of our network, more known networking folks in here, but I'll see what we can do about finding that answer. Next question.
Fair enough. Moving on to Rachel Ann Clifton, who this one would be interesting too. I know we want to talk about Walmart going live on TikTok. Can we just rip on this topic outreach for a moment? Thank you.
I already started. I started last night. I got this text from a friend of mine who works in this realm. And first question is, are you working on the Walmart, TikTok live? And I was like, nope. And he goes, okay, let me talk about this for a second. Like these guys are crazy. And so, cause we wanted to be nice cause he knows that that's the kind of, I mean, I haven't worked with Walmart, but he knew that I work on a lot of large brand stuff. And so he wanted to make sure he wasn't like ripping my show. But, it's just so much. Did anyone see it? Did anyone see the live Walmart on TikTok? Okay. So
no, can you give us an overview of what happens?
Yeah. So what Walmart did, I mean, so there's a lot of interest by retailers in streaming live, like buying processes, because in China, it's making hundreds of billions of dollars are changing hands with live streaming products with the ability to buy the product right there and then while you're streaming. So TikTok worked on an activation where Walmart is going live. They're talking about different products, and there's a little button that you can buy immediately, like in app. You can buy the product. That was the goal.
So they want to turn TikTok into the home shopping network.
Yeah, and China has done it extremely effectively. So it's not it's a proven model in China, but I think that China is a different culture than the United States. Also, TikTok, I think that the problem, it'll be really interesting to see. So they did a homepage promotion of it. A homepage promotion should yield 50,000 or more viewers concurrent, and it was at 10 or 14,000. So from a pure numbers perspective, it's kind of a disaster. And then when you actually watched it, it was a pre-record. So they're live streaming a pre-record into TikTok of a woman talking about some, I guess, semi-famous DJ or whatever, talking about products and showing an iPad and just kind of showing it one after the other, because the pre-record lets them time, putting up the little things. And it was super shiny, like way shinier than even TikTok. Like even the shiniest fashion TikTok, it was obviously they spent good money on the setup. Overall, it was just it's like corporate doing like, this is what the kids like these days, and we're going to take over. We're going to show them how to really do it. That's what it really felt like when I saw it. It was like the big boys are going to show the little kids how to really do live on TikTok, and it was pretty pathetic, in my opinion. Like it was, and a lot of us in the back end are watching it, just going, I wonder what the average view. The big conversation is always, I bet you average view time, and we were talking probably less than 10 seconds for most people. Less than, they'll go see it because they see that Walmart's doing something, and they'll be like, wow, this is really bad, and then they'll leave. And it's shiny. It's not bad, like bad quality, just bad idea. But it's I always think of it as that from what was the Despicable Me. It's like, why are you so old? Like it's just such a horrible way to do that. Anyway, so Sky.
Well, my immediate thought was the movie Wall-E, when all those people are on the conveyor belts on the big shiny ship in the space, and the new cool thing comes out, and then everybody wants it. And so I'm just thinking they're
but the problem is that I don't
giving
know if
access to that.
I would love to see the stats
They
on it.
just didn't want to be left out. So the new color is blue.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to jump to Benjamin and then Laura.
Just real quick, reminds me of like a terrible version of QVC, but where you're just like, it's not like there's no activation energy required, right? You don't have to like pick up your phone and call now. It's you just have the button, and I see the idea, but if it's stuff people don't want to buy or aren't interested in
also
hearing
if it's
about,
not, if it's so fast, like for instance. Because I've been thinking about experimenting with the idea of doing Amazon Live or something like that. Now with someone like Jeffrey or doing it, or someone like me, like I think if I did an Amazon Live where you could buy stuff while I was talking, I probably do okay, at it but that comes from building a long relationship with folks that know that I'm only going to talk about things that I really like. Like I'm not going to be like trying to shill something. I'm going to be like, this is the only product that I want. Here are the products on Amazon that I buy all the time, and you can buy that too. That would be the way to do that, rather than, and I would just stop doing it when I ran out of things. I wouldn't just keep doing things to do them. Go ahead, Laura, and then Jeffrey.
My first thought on this, I have not seen it, is I can guarantee Walmart did it low budget, in-house.
Nope.
Really?
No. They went completely the other direction. That's not the problem with the product. The product, although it did lose audio, but that was a technical issue. No. This is it's a higher profile host. It is it was as shiny. I'm sure they did it in a set. I'm going to guess they probably spent $50,000 to $100,000 on the activation, in production. It's really well lit, designed. There's nothing technically wrong with it. It definitely wasn't a low budget execution. It was bad ideation, but it wasn't bad production. It was a perfectly executed, horrible idea. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, being somebody that deals with that with Amazon Live, you got to remember, if you're going to go on Amazon Live, you're there to sell a product. No matter what, hands down, they want you to play games and things like that, but they want you to sell products. And if you're not going to do that, you're going to be pretty much off the system as quick as possible. So you have to work these things a little bit differently than like a YouTube channel or a Facebook channel. I know,
but going into Twitter, we were talking about TikTok at first, is that the TikTok thing is that it is they don't get the culture at all. And you saw this with ads. My kids will just immediately like spin off an ad. Now they started getting better at it, where some of the ads you can't quite, unless you look down and see promoted in TikTok, you can't quite tell that it's an ad because it's a little bit more real. It's a little bit more real. And this is a problem of fitting into the culture that we've dealt with for a long time. So, in the early days of YouTube and before FEC issues or FTC issues, we may have been hired to do things where we put stuff on YouTube that never mentioned the product, except for that the product showed up in the product. It was pure product placement, and we would get production value to just build literally what looked like a viral video that had there was never any branding, never anything else. It was handheld. It was shot with little cameras. It was done all those things and got up there. And they weren't looking for massive numbers, but 50, 100,000 views kind of thing. But it was a part of this massive ad campaign. And even with TikTok, the most effective things that people have been doing is the TikTokers that are, once you get over about 1 million folks, is you'll notice that they're all wearing the same brand sweatshirt. They don't talk about it. They don't talk about how great it is. They don't shill it. There's they just happen to be wearing it, and they're all wearing it. Yeah. They're all wearing and it won't be the same sweatshirt. It'll be the same clothing brand. And that's
my point.
Super effective.
My point just more
on Amazon though, but on Amazon, like literally, I think that I get the selling thing, but on Amazon, if I did it, which I'm probably going to do next year as an experiment, because I want the data, is because I have to be able to, I have to do it so that I can tell our clients what worked and didn't work and how to set it up and everything else. And so, but my whole thing is it's not so much selling, but I'll just talk about things that I like, on Amazon. Like I think this is a really good camera, or this is a really good webcam. This is why I like it. But mine will always be a very just off the cuff, whatever. And again, it'll probably sell as much as a lot of people would in the tech vertical. But I think that hard sell, I think people are getting tired of. It's just really hard to do that. So,
but the bigger thing is this was a test and TikTok, and they're going to judge whether it was a successful test or not.
I could have told you that it was a bad idea before the storyboards, like literally on the pitch paper. I could have looked at that and said, that's a horrible idea. That's a horrible idea. You should never do that.
And there's probably a lot of people that did say it was a horrible idea. They just did it anyway, and now they're going to weigh the options, see what happens. That's where I was going with that.
It's going to die. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, there is a small subset of people who are traditional shopaholics who have poor impulse control. And I do wonder what these kind of things are going to do to them, because we always see these on 60 Minutes, something of somebody who just can't control that and ends up with a house full of unopened boxes and just keep buying stuff. Now, that's a minor problem in this, but reducing friction between showing something and buying something, reduce it down to zero, and you do get some problems that come along with that.
Maybe. I just think the biggest problem is just bad video. Like I think that, John.
So how much do you think of it was the mindset of a brand like Walmart versus, say, a mindset of a brand that may be seen as more hipper like Target? Do you think Target could have done something better?
The thing is that I just think that there is a great way to do content related to a brand, and we've done it with brands, where it's more about learning something and it happens to include products is the way to do this. It's about doing something. And there's been brands that we've worked with that are exceptionally good at that we're going to do a whole bunch of things. Like we did some stuff with L'Oreal, which I just thought they brought in these really high-end makeup artists that showed you how to do makeup. And we set it up where we had a model, and basically the person made up half of her face, and we set up all the cameras and everything else, and then they're answering questions to people in the Hangout, and they're answering questions that are coming in text, and they're doing all of it, and they're showing you we've got close-ups and wides and everything else. Now, I'm not that interested in makeup, but what I will say is that sold an enormous amount. It was what was called a shoppable Hangout, so you could buy all the things that person was using while they were using it. But the thing is that a lot of it, sales were really good. Like a lot of people bought that stuff, but it was a show. It was real content. Like it was like people were learning how to properly do the thing that they do with their makeup. I don't understand it that much, but it was like really, he was talking all this technical stuff about shaping and about sculpting the face and doing all this stuff. And he was just incredibly good at it. He's like their in-house, like high-end demo. Like, this is how you do this. So this is all he does, is show people how to use the makeup. And so he just kind of worked through it all, and we had great camera angles and everything else. It made a lot of money. Like it did. It was a definitely effective execution. But it was in the sense of it was really, you could learn something. If you never bought anything, it would be a great show to watch. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, and that's the authenticity component right there. It's being honest about, it's a show to sell you something, and you're going to learn, and rather than the subliminal concept.
And even if
Benjamin's nodding his head,
just here's a show, and if you want to buy along, if you want to buy to play along, here's where you go buy it.
And that's not being dishonest.
Then the buying part is a service, it's a service to the viewers. They don't have to go anywhere to find it. But it's not, they don't feel like they're being sold to. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, that reminds me, yesterday, a guy's YouTube channel I watch, he has this really off kind of sarcastic channel, and he'd never done a product before, and he's like, I should get into makeup, and this guy reached out to me, and I'm now doing beard oil. And because number one, he has a beard, and number two, I find his bluntness kind of refreshing. I went out and bought it, and it was a decent price. So in a couple weeks, I'll probably have the beard oil and try it out and know if I wasted my money or not. But it was an honest, earnest appeal that wasn't, it wasn't a sales pitch. It was, I got this product, you should try it. This is how we built it. And it was kind of neat.
Yeah, and I mean, like for instance, for MacBreak picks, for instance, we never get paid for those, and we sometimes get demos to look at to do it, but even then, most of the time, I don't recommend demos because I don't know, I kind of want to feel like I bought it, and if I that I thought it was worth it, but I do, for some software, I'm like, oh, I don't know, we'll see, and we use it, but I think that I took it much more seriously after I was talking to developers and found out that MacBreak makes at least their week. Like, if we recommend a piece of software, it makes at least their week, if not their month, and for some of them a year. When I was talking to them at WWDC, I was like, oh, I better be more serious about this. like what we recommend, because it has a huge impact on their scale. And so so I think that it is an important place to be, but I think that the only reason it is that way is because Andy and Renee and I and Leo take it pretty seriously. Like we really are trying to recommend things that we really believe in. And I think it's hard to do a show like that because you run out of material. It's hard to come up with it for Mac Break every time. Like it's always like this scramble of stuff to try to figure out something that you want to point people the right direction. Anyway, next question.
Stan Chan of Roseville comes back with the next one. I usually set my MixPre-10 II as 32-bit float. Is there any reason I should set it to 24-bit or lower for streaming purposes?
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, when the the second generation MixPres are set to 32-bit, the analog limiters are disabled because technically you don't need them in 32-bit. So I would suggest if you are at the end of the day streaming out, 16-bit or 24-bit, might as well set it to a lower bit depth so that you don't.
Does it work now with? For a while, it didn't work to go out of the USB-C. If you were set to 32-bit, you couldn't get it into Zoom.
I believe it works starting with Catalina or Big Sur. I don't recall.
Because I know that was a problem for us, is that we didn't think that we could pull get it into Zoom. I have to go back and look. When it was set to 32-bit.
I don't know if Zoom would take it, but I know the OS would at either Catalina or Big Sur.
The other thing is just fast turns or anything else that you might want to do with those audio. Some programs don't handle 32-bit float, so that's the other challenge there is to know what you're going to record it to. It is nice though, because especially if you're setting out where it's unmanaged, like we just used it all last week. If it's unmanaged and you don't have someone there riding levels, it's nice to know that if we're close, we're going to be okay. Like there's, I don't know how well we'll be able to hear it, but it's all there. It's all been captured. In that system. Next question.
Moving on to Dale Nebetta of Oakland, California, who says, what is the final consensus of the usefulness of the BlackMagic Streaming Bridge?
Is anyone still using it? I guess is the question. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I still have it. The whole reason why I got it was so I could do remote streaming, and we haven't really been in a situation where I've been out there remotely streaming, so I can't say too much on that aspect, but it still does exactly what it's supposed to do, and that is bring in a signal at the best quality possible from the internet that we have.
I haven't. I was excited about it until I found out I wasn't going to be able to use it as a way to control the switcher, which is what we need more than anything else, and so I didn't buy it. Didn't even ask to test it. I was like, well, this isn't going to be useful for me because low latency RTMP does not make me excited. Like if it was SRT, I'd be a little excited. If it was Zixi, I'd be really excited. But a low latency RTMP to me just feels like it's going to break up all the time. So I just wasn't that interested. But we'll see. Next question.
Comes to us from Walter, and I believe it's Colvin.
Wouter, I think it's Wouter.
Wouter, you're right. Wouter, Coach. I was so pay attention to the second one, not getting that right, that I messed up the first name. In Bunschoten, the Netherlands, I believe. I'm using vMix and LiveToAir, both fantastic. And I see both use WebRTC and Safari, which works well. Now, here's the question. I want to connect a wired professional microphone and headphones. Connecting this to a digital audio iOS or Lightning interface is not working with Safari. Any suggestions? And a note, so using a phone for locating live interviews are great for our local broadcast stations. So the video is great, almost no latch working well, but I need a good audio interface on the Lightning port to connect multiple mics now in COVID time to interview and multiple headphones for monitoring.
You have now run into the limitation of WebRTC. Is that configuring professional audio and video into WebRTC? This is why we don't use it. Is configuring WebRTC into and giving it professional. Now you can. I don't know how to do it in Safari. When we've used WebRTC, we almost always use Chrome because Chrome is kind of the base test platform for WebRTC. So we almost always use Chrome for that. I don't know. So the one that for SRT backhauls that folks have used for the phone are the Larix. LARIX is a popular one, and I believe that you can select the external interfaces with Larix. You're going to have a higher latency than WebRTC, but that is another way to pull that audio in, or pull that video and audio in. Any other notes about that? I don't, but it's literally why we stopped doing that, was because of I can't do what you're trying to do, or I had trouble with it. Hosma?
Oh, this is a non-technical contribution. It's pronounced Voter, just like what you've guys done. Voter Colvane.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent.
Volter
Thank you.
Colvane. Very nice.
Volta,
And I apologize,
Volta.
Volter.
Yeah, great.
For messing up
sorry, we don't have a better answer either.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, then we're moving along, I suppose, to Charles Hendrickson of Annapolis, Maryland. Is the Apple Pro Display XDR a suitable reference display for efficient Resolve and or Dolby Vision HDR production workflows?
I haven't used one. I mean, I've seen one, but I haven't used one in production. I'm told that it is reasonably good, for a reference. It's not full. Like, they wouldn't consider it a full reference monitor if in a professional environment to do that, but you could do a lot of good work in it, and it would be accurate enough to do it. So in kind of a small scale, I'm told that it's good enough for most things. If you're doing film, I'm told that you would still want a reference monitor. Like that probably costs at least as much as that monitor to do it. I am thinking about getting one because of the amount of work that I'm doing. But right now, what I have is an LG that goes out of it's actually less expensive LG monitor that goes out of a Mini Ultra Studio that gets fed that, and then we look at it through there. So, but I am considering that purchase just because of what I'm working on. But I'm told it's reasonably good, and that, I mean, it's from reasonably good people to know, but it's not the replacement for a reference monitor. Next question.
Moving on to Stan Chan of Roseville, California. Recommendations for an HDMI 12x2 matrix switcher.
12x12.
I was thinking of, I'm sorry, 12x12. It's 12x2 later. 12x12 matrix switcher. I was thinking of a Blackmagic design smart video hub 12x12, but will require many micro SDI HDMI converters. I guess the video hub would be more future proof, but it will take another 2 units from my rack.
So it is a lot of hardware to do that. I just, Guy, do you know any like good HDMI 12x12 matrices?
Not that big. Like a 4x4 by Roland is about, or an 8. I think there's an 8X by Kramer, but I'd probably just bite the bullet and get the video hub and a bunch of converters, because it's like $4,000 just for the Kramer. So, I mean, it's cheaper. Those little converters are like $59 a whack or something like that. So I'd just do it. Sorry, Stan, I know it's a mess of cables, but I don't think that there's a clean way, unless there's something like really industrial. There might be something on like the high end that
Yep. You can get them in a Ross, in the Ross router. You can get that, but that starts at like $60,000. So they have cards that go in that are just all HDMI, just in case you really need that matrix. Next question.
Benjamin from here in the panel in San Carlos, California. Suggestions for free or low-cost audio spectrum visualizer plugins. What are you looking? Go ahead, Nikki.
Yeah, maybe take a look at Ghost by Blue Lab. I think it's around the $50, I think.
Any suggestions for a free version?
Sorry?
Any suggestions for a free version? Are there any good free versions?
I haven't tried any free ones. I should take a look.
And a note to everyone is that it's the bottom of the first hour, and we don't have that many questions. So this is going to be we might have a longer break if we don't get more questions. So this is a good time to ask questions. If you were wondering whether we're going to get to them, we will. If you ask them right now. If you wait another 5 or 10 minutes, we'll probably be full again. Go ahead, Bill.
It's not at all full featured, but in some of the NLEs like Final Cut Pro 10, there is a spectrum analyzer that you can turn on live inside the channel EQ. So if you want to spend nothing and you have that software, you might look around and see if there's a simple spectrum analyzer available for free.
Next question.
Moving on to Jeffrey Powers. from the panel. Is there any disadvantage to using an HDMI fiber cable over a standard HDMI?
So you're talking about like the Corning style, it's fiber. I think the only thing is one way. And we've had some issues with it, but it's that aren't quite as stable as the shorter ones, but it's one. I believe they're always one way.
Well, there's some that's out like Ethernet and 4x4. I don't know all the terms on that.
So that's and what's the length on that one?
This is 90 feet, 30 something meters. But yeah, it is one way, and I would say that the big disadvantage is that they're fragile. These are not to be thrown around. This is like $190 cable. So,
do you know if you're able to control the BlackMagic cameras?
Yep, you can. I've tested it. Yep, I have it right here.
It's great. Interesting. Oh, there was somebody else had their hand up, but I missed it. No. Okay. Cool. All right. Next question.
Okay, we're moving along, this time to Jake Hamilton in North Hollywood, who asks, what lights are people using to throw a broad color wash on their background when not using a backdrop?
Go ahead, Sky, and then John.
I'm currently just using the little $12 bulb from Home Depot, but I just bought the RGB newer in EE. I think they're called RGB 660s, and they come in a box of 3, reasonably priced. And Jake, I'm going to shame you. You said you were going to be on the panel today. We talked yesterday. So come on, Jake, bring it down.
Go ahead, John, and then Steve. I can't hear you, John.
And yes, I am using my mouse to unmute it. It's just I got a big monitor. I am using the newer. I'm going to switch over to my other display so that you can see. I've got the 660 RGB. It's controlled by my phone.
How much is it?
They only come in one, but yeah.
How much is it?
I bought the 3-pack. Comes with stands. It was like $270. Of course, it was like the Black Friday, but still.
Yeah, it's very cool. All
comes
right,
comes in a bag. Reasonable stands and barn doors.
If you just
Mine
want to
didn't
throw,
come with a stand.
Oh, good, Steve.
If you want to throw just a simple little bit of color, the aperture, little MC, C-charged. It's really just a wonderful light to get just about any kind of color you want on it. And if it's all you're interested in is throwing a little splash of light on the background, these are great.
Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then Bill.
Excuse me. I've tested a bunch of Edison style bulbs, the standard, you get off the shelf type stuff. In fact, that's one of them that's sitting behind me right now. And that does multiple colors. The one thing that I look for, of course, is when we start to fade down, if it starts to get that flickering that you would see in a LED that is dimmable. So that's the one thing you want to watch for, is the flicker if you're using it in a video. Or the 60 hertz flip. I can't remember what that's called.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, the key to me is you said broad color wash. So to me, that indicates that you're not looking for something like the little highlight I use here. If you are, I use this guy, which is just a G18. It's like $70, and they're really good for being able to dial in not only individual colors, because it's pretty much full spectrum color, but you can also switch it to white as a little kicker light and stuff like that. If you're trying to do a whole background and you want even color, these are just too small. And so unless you add like 4 of them around a shot, so I would definitely go with one of the more 12 by 12 matrices for a broader wash, particularly if you put 2 of those back behind you. I think you could fill up a normal background pretty well with an even color splash.
But I was just playing with one while you guys were talking. I was just like,
there you
I
go.
wonder what I could get a little splash out of. This is the little Nanlite Lido Light SC or whatever, this little guy here. And they have sent it to me to look at it and play with it a little bit. And it kind of works.
I'm surprised at how bright these guys can get. If I take the color off of this, it's that's one of its special effects. We don't want that.
Yeah.
But you can turn it up pretty strong.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Guy. And then TJ.
You didn't say budget, so here we go. Airy Sky panel. Area sky panel would be what's used on big sets. The one that we've been seeing moving and the one that I had in our showroom for a while is incredible. It's about $1,600, so it's way up there, but it's the Aputure P300 Nova. This thing is intense. Like it lit up our showrooms. I mean, it's not huge, but it's like 30 feet and it lit up the whole white wall. So it's crazy. So if he's looking for a broad color wash across a large area, this would be one to look at. But yeah, behind me, I have one of these little prismatic spectra ring lights, and that's what's lighting up all that.
Nice. TJ?
I'm using two Philips Hue light bulbs and two different little cheapy hardware store clamp-on light fixtures.
Go ahead, Sky.
Just also to accent the accent light. Yes, the little Nan light. This is the what they call the 5C. And again, Alex, you suggested it, and it was on sale. So I've been ironically using the pink, and it just makes a nice little accent color back in the kitchen for Madeline. It's good fun.
Nice. Yeah, they're cute. And they're chargeable. This is just USB-C, so you just kind of just plug it in, charge it up, and
it's got a magnet back, so I just pop it up on the fridge or up on the thing. Yeah, it's pretty hot.
It's well thought out.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill, and then John.
If you want to take a step up even from what Guy was talking about, this is the Light Panels Gemini, which is one of the finest instruments I've ever used out in big boy lighting. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly soft. It does colors beautifully, and it'll run you back about $3,500, give or take a little bit.
Go ahead, John.
Airy.
Yeah, I think the difference from what Sky got and what I got originally is that Sky, was yours controllable from your phone, or was it
I've not found a remote for it, but it's got some
I'm talking about for the newer ones that you ordered.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Because they've got a cheaper one that isn't controlled by your phone. So
it's Bluetooth
I don't know,
over Wi-Fi though.
Yeah, okay. Mine's Bluetooth controlled.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Next question.
Okay, moving on to TJ Asher's question. Next in the queue, is there a recommended method to output a computer display via HDMI for the ATEM Mini and still be able to see what's actually being output to the ATEM? I want to make sure the screen out to the ATEM is perfect before it goes down the stream.
ATEM?
ATEM. ATEM.
Sorry.
It's hard because it's like we call them. It's hard for me now because there's a streaming company called ATEM, so we tend to call them ATEM, but it's ATEME. So then ATEM, but ATEM is I think what we used to call it. I have, it's very confusing. It's an Egyptian god, so I have to go back and look at that. Go ahead, TJ.
Well, I'm just wondering what I'm looking to do is so that if I've got one computer with its monitor and spitting out into the ATEM Mini, and I need to know that what is on that monitor is only what should be on that monitor. And since it's hooked to the ATEM, I can't actually see the output.
Oh, because you don't have a multi-view. Is that the issue?
Yes.
The Mini doesn't have a multi-view, so what you need to do is, go ahead, Mickey.
Maybe go for getting an affordable little monitor with an HDMI loop out, like something from I don't know if the Blackmagic has loop out on the HDMI, but say some of the small HD monitors have loop out on the HDMI inputs and outputs.
Yep. Now go ahead, John, and then Victor, and then Bill.
Yeah. So I've got the ATEM Mini streaming from my computer to the on preview, and well, I can't show it on the display because if I do, then it won't show the preview. Well, maybe I can. Here, I'm going to cut so you can see my little display here. There's the MacBook. So you can pass through through the ATEM Mini at least. I don't know how you would stream out from there, but you can at least see the preview of what you're doing on there if you did the preview mirroring as opposed to the preview.
And John, you're breaking up in your audio somewhere. You're getting a little dropouts, little micro dropouts. Victor, and then Bill, real quick. We're gonna we have too many questions, so we're gonna start accelerating again.
Following up, Feel World 5-inch or 7-inch monitors. They have HDMI ins and outs, so you can do that. Second thing, free version of QLab, you could design your lower third or whatever you're going to do there, put QLab into audition mode. It'll show you what's going to spit out before you send it out.
Go ahead, Bill.
HDMI in and out is also a feature that Lily puts. What I've did is I got a little trip light 1 to 2 HDMI splitter. It's a little powered thing with a wall wart, but that allows me to send that signal to 2 things. So if you do a little small monitor, even a cheap one, directly HDMI that will show you that bus before it gets to the ATEM. So you could look at a preview like that.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, TJ, are you using the HDMI out on the ATEM for anything, or is it blank?
Right now, no, I don't have the HDMI out, but my understanding was that out is what is coming live out of the ATEM.
It is by default, but there's a little option in the software control panel to pull it down, and you can change it to preview. So now you can change that to your preview, or you can change it to just be like camera 1 if that's where your laptop's hooked up, and you can just leave camera 1 outputting out that HDMI the whole time.
Okay.
Next question.
There you go. Moving along to Walter again. Walter,
nope.
Pardon me.
It's I don't
Wouter.
think it's,
His name is
no.
Wouter.
Wouter.
No. Hosmuk, can you? I want to make sure we get this right.
Voter. You know, just like you vote. Just like you vote. Voter.
He's been on before, and he told us it's Wouter. I remember him.
Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead. What's the question?
The question is, so if WebRTC is not professional, what should I use to get remote guests in with vMix? And he notes, by the way, you guys at the end did well to pronounce my name. So at the end, we finally got it right. We didn't remember it as well as you should have, but we got it right.
So the I mean, to get what you need WebRTC to get out of vMix, you're just running into the limitations of vMix, and it's not that it's not professional, it's just that it's harder to configure. If you're dealing with individuals that you're going to use on a day-to-day basis, I think WebRTC works great. So my decision to not use it didn't have. If I was working with a press person that I could teach them how to do it, and they're going to come in every day, works perfectly. If I'm dealing with someone that's technical that can figure it out, works perfectly. I just deal with lots of non-technical people that are coming in for one time only, and WebRTC was not sustainable for that. And so when you have to deal with 50, 60 people that have never done this before every month, you just kind of go, I don't know if I want to do that. I think that if you want to do it with vMix, well, one to look at is the Larix. Larix is an SRT protocol. vMix will see an SRT protocol. You'll have a higher latency, but it will give you more control. I would at least research it and come back to us and let us know whether it was successful or not. It will not be as low latency as WebRTC, but I don't know how to get external audio into an iOS device on a WebRTC connection. I don't have a solution for that. Next question.
Okay, it comes to us from TJ Asher here in the panel, who's going to help me by figuring out. He said, "Did anybody see the FIA?" I didn't know if that was FIFA or if a different organization I'm not familiar with. Prize-Giving Ceremony. They had lots of awards recipients on Zoom, and at one point pulled them all onto the screen on stage with the hosts. It looked like a mix of TV, satellite, and Zoom to recipients, and he has a link there if anybody wants.
What's
to
FIA?
It's French for some. It's the International Auto Racing Association.
Okay, you can tell that we're deep into auto racing here.
Oh, that isn't too busy.
Well, they're dressed up too.
It was their replacement. Normally they have an awards banquet at the end of the year, big formal dinner where they give away all the awards for the year, and they did it remotely this year.
I think the bummer is always the ones where they put up people's stills. I think it's better when people are moving. I think this is the hard part with this. It looks like they're just mapping. I mean, to me, it doesn't look like they're doing anything that imaginative. It looks like they're kind of mapping big screens onto it and grabbing a couple. This probably could be done with the ATEM or Zoom OSC could probably do some of these where it's grabbing individual images, for that process. But it looks like a lot of these are just whole monitors that are being grabbed and maybe even just using a variety of DVEs to kind of pull pieces out. Go ahead, John.
That one person by the hostess just looks surprised the entire time, even though I know it's a still. It's just like,
yeah,
and
it's
not an optimal shot.
The hard part. The funny thing is that for someone to get ready to go to one of these events, they would have spent a day, getting their tux and doing their thing, and like there's a whole bunch of effort that people put into showing up in person, and then it's always amazing at how little effort they're going to put into showing up online. That's one of our big challenges doing virtual events is people put in a small fraction of the effort that they put into a real one in time. And but what I mean by is time, and they just don't think it's that important. So they have their little things up. I think it takes a lot away to have a whole bunch of profile pictures. Go ahead, TJ.
To be honest, to some of the participants, or to be fair to them, some of the actual award winners did have, tuxes and were dressed really nicely, and they were prepared for the formality of the event, as it were.
I think that's true. I just think I would have hidden everybody else. I wouldn't have shown a bunch of profile pictures. I think that takes a lot of energy out of the system to just not show it should be you're either there or you're not. You either showed up or you didn't, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I agree on that. There's one other thing, and I'm going to go back to the screen here really quick. Look at the
go
top
quickly because we're gonna bust.
Yeah. Look at the top left-hand corner. You notice how that they're definitely doing some screen scraping because we see some of the Zoom infrastructure on there.
Oh my gosh!
So
the infrastructure that we would love to get rid of. I just hate all those floating everything. Anyway, next question.
Okay.
And by the way, the reason I attack that is because part of my campaign to get more people to do online events is getting rid of the friction that makes them stressful and upsetting for people, and getting rid of anything that affects screen scrape would massively change how production companies think about using Zoom for their infrastructure. But it's those little pop-ups and all those other things have them go, oh, we should, they just want to get back to physical events because this chaos drives them crazy. And, Zoom does it better than everyone else, but getting rid of that is not just a thing that bothers me. It's a thing that's slowing down the adoption of Zoom as a platform. Next question.
I wouldn't have watched that for 3 minutes because there was too many faces and my eyes were going too many places and I couldn't find a focus point at all. But that's
next
me.
Question.
Yeah, moving on. Roz McNulty of Vancouver, Canada is our next participant in the office hours question and answer session. What about working with external graphics cards with a Mac? Would the new Mac Mini work in this way?
I don't think it sees it for some reason. I think you can't. I think the new M1 doesn't see external graphics cards. Peter?
They've explicitly says it does not support the external cages.
Yep. Because of the SoC, it doesn't do that. Yep. Next question.
Brett Dykus, who gave me, I think,
hi, Roz. It's good to see you here, by the way.
Brett Dykus of Kansas City, Missouri says, what are any favorite small size prompter glass options for iPhone size displays, near field use? Are there alternatives to the Padcaster model?
I guess the question is the iPhone size display. I'm assuming that you might want to use an actual monitor that is the size of an iPhone. And what we did for those is using Lilliput's, and we actually printed our own little teleprompter pieces that worked really well. But I've never seen one that small. What was great about it is we could put it literally in a small pocket in our backpack, and we were able to take a teleprompter with us, which was kind of cool. But I haven't seen anybody commercially build those.
I have one in a box over here that is designed for an iPad, but iPhone, I'm sorry, that is very small plastic housing, little tiny beam splitter, but I got so distracted I haven't taken it out of the box and set it up anywhere.
Yeah. There's some little ones.
Yeah. That looks like maybe the one that I got.
Padcaster is probably
you could make your own. Yeah, like you did. That's the only thing I could.
Yeah, you get it small enough. We made our own. The hardest part is long, big flat pieces on printing is really hard to do without it warping. So on our next step, we were kind of on our list before we stopped making them, just because I had closed the company. We're talking about machining them because I think an aluminum version would be super useful. Anyway, next question.
James Babbitt of San Diego here. Well, hi, Alex. When using a headset mic, are there belt packs that use a full-size XLR connector? Yes, I'm wearing one right now.
It's a full-size XLR connector?
Well, in terms of connection to the headset mic, full-size XLR, and
Right.
If I unplug this, I'll go off. But this with a belt clip is my interface into XLR.
Right. If you're using wired, if you're talking about a belt pack that is a belt pack, like a wireless belt pack, then typically not. You typically they're moving you to a. I think that there are some. Audio Technica makes one that's kind of a wired version of what Bill has. That they have a wired connection to a belt pack that will then do the nice thing about that is that it was taking the line in and then pushing right out of it, or mic in, line out, is one option. So that's kind of nice to have there. But generally, most belt packs go to a TA3, 4, or 5 to do that. Go ahead, Jeffrey or Limo.
Yeah, I have a couple Audio Technicas that are floor mics that do the TA4F to XLR, plus the Crown. When I used to use the Crown headset for my while playing drums, that would also have an XLR out, not a wireless option, of course. So,
yep. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, there's some XLR transmitters. These are typically used for in use to put on a handheld mic, so to turn it into a wireless one, or on the end of a boom pole to turn the boom into a wireless boom. You can get them from brands like Sennheiser and Lectrosonics and such.
And if you have a TA4F and you need just to adapt it to XLR, this it's the company is TYPA A65P. This will take the TA4F on one end and adapt it to a full-size XLR male on the other end, so you can plug it into it. So,
next question.
Moving on to Stan Chan of Roseville. Anyone using a Blackmagic Design DaVinci Resolve speed editor, is it useful?
I don't know anybody that uses it. I skip over it. I feel like I don't understand. It hasn't been added to make it a speed editor. It was there evidently all the time for the way that you kind of worked with Resolve. But I haven't seen anybody actually use it other than Grant in the demos. But everybody else I know just goes straight to the edit menu. Go ahead, Bill.
I think it's the equivalent to the precision editor in Final Cut 10. It's been there since the whole time, and I don't know more than maybe a half dozen guys who use it,
Ever opened it,
or women who use it as editors. So it's just there.
Yeah. Last question from Robert. Just know that that's probably a little too close to politics for us. I know they're probably a little newer here, but we're not going to answer that question or even discuss it. It just gets people riled up. And it's not media related directly. So anyway, if you are an educator, please go ahead and raise your digital hand, and we'll start doing another round of mic checks. It's good to have you all here. Go ahead and let's go ahead and bring everybody in. And I'm going to step away for just a minute. I'll be back right at the top of the hour. And I'll let Mickey go ahead and just make sure that everybody's audio sounds good.
All right. Hey guys, you guys know the drill. Please put your first name, last name, and location in Zoom. And our goal is hit negative 24 on the meters. Let's start off with Roscoe and then Chris Clark afterwards.
Wow, okay. Got promoted into the big leagues here quickly, but I got to find and pin my WLM. And I haven't found, there it is. All right. So I'm talking 28, 29, 30. Going to boost it, I guess, just a little bit here. And I'm getting right up at 24. So I guess I'll hang in there.
Yeah, maybe just another dB up. Chris Clark and then Kent Kersey afterwards.
Good morning, everyone from Tempe, Arizona. We're enjoying sunny weather, but it feels cold to us with our thin Arizona blood. A little down. Okay. Let's get down to, that's too overshot. Let's talk a little bit more and see if we can get it in the ballpark. How's that looking, Mickey, from your point of view?
I think you're right there, Chris.
Thank you.
Kent and then Aaron afterwards.
Good morning, everybody, and I hope y'all are doing well. I've got something weird in my my monitor here, so I'll fix that. But just to make sure that the mic is doing okay, and I hope everybody's doing well. So, how is it looking, Mickey?
A dB or two down, Kent.
Okay, got it. Is that look better or sound better? I guess is what we should say.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Aaron. And then Tony, if you're joining us, please turn on your camera.
All right. Good morning from Boston, where it's very, very cold, wicked cold in Boston. And we have lots of snow that will hopefully stay around for Christmas, because who doesn't like a white Christmas?
Could you give us a dB up, Aaron?
Okay. All right. So thankfully, report card season is over, and now we can have a little fun this week. So hopefully the kiddos enjoy what I have in store for them.
Thank you very much, Tony. And then we'll check back in with Laura, who wants to do a recheck.
Good morning, everyone. I actually hadn't planned to come in today. I was just going to be an attendee because I'm on my iPad, so I don't know if that's going to be appropriate or not. How do I sound?
I think if you want to stick around, why not? Maybe just place the iPad at a more comfortable spot for you so that you're not leaning over to it.
Okay, I'll put it on some books. I'll just turn the camera off for a second, get some books, and then turn it right back on.
Copy that. Thank you. Laura?
Okay, I've switched headsets. It looks like I may need to go up a little bit. I know this one doesn't.
There's a lot of noise in that chain. I think the previous headset might work better.
Let's see if I turn original sound off, if that helps any. Is that helping any, Mickey?
Not really.
Okay,
It sounds very thin, and there's some, I think, electrical noise somewhere, some interference.
Yeah,
Right,
this
thanks,
is
Laura.
not the greatest. Thank you.
Thank you. Silence. We have Bruce Francis coming in.
It is quiet here. But it's good to see so many friendly faces in the panel this morning.
Is my audio less choppy now, Mickey?
Give us a few more seconds of speech.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Sorry for interrupting there.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, it's never an interruption. I'm always the seem to be lately the problem child with audio.
Yeah, I'm still.
By the
I'm
way,
still
is
hearing,
horrible.
Still hearing
I'm
those
just-
clicks. So yeah, definitely. I would avoid running noise suppression plugins on a live situation if possible. So yeah, maybe for next time around, I would actually try to look for the source of that noise instead of covering it up with a plugin. Let's
Roger
check on
that.
Bruce's level.
Okay, here I am back. Trying it with my Mac, see if it's working. Okay, how's that sound? Where am I? 22 something, 21 something? Is that about where it ought to be?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Bump down maybe 2 or 3 dB, Bruce.
2 or 3 dB. Let's see. I got to figure out how to do this on the Mac. Will that do it a little bit?
Use Zoom.
Yeah. So
Use
and
Zoom.
the
I
Zoom.
don't know where that is. Where's the Zoom thing on? I've got a mute button and there's all the sound. Oh, does that allow me to control the
So
sound?
go to Zoom's preferences.
Preferences.
So the menu up top, Zoom, and then preferences.
Okay. I don't want to keep everybody. I'm not seeing it on my screen, for crying out loud. I got a YouTube there and recording, and that's
So
funny.
at the very top, the menu bar at the
Oh,
very
wait
top.
a minute. Very top. Yes. Zoom US.
Zoom
and
US,
down
and
to
then
preferences. Got it. Okay.
And then
I
go
see
to
it.
audio.
All right. Let me get preferences. Why doesn't it show up audio when I hit preferences? It's weird.
So a preferences window should have popped up.
All right. And I don't see one. Oh, I see where it is, up on my other screen. Now you want me to
Okay.
go down a little bit. Okay, input
So
volume down.
audio.
How's
Yeah,
that?
input volume down. And I assume right
How's that?
below that slider, there's automatically adjust microphone volume. Make
That's
sure
turned-
that is not checked.
Yeah, that's not checked. I did that before, and now I'm got it down lower. How does it sound now?
Maybe split the difference on that change. It's a little too
Okay.
low now.
A little too low. There. Did that work it a little bit better? It says 28, 21. Boy, that's high.
One more bump. One more
More
bump
bump.
up.
Okay.
Up.
Yeah, up. Yeah, up. And that should make it what seems to be going the wrong way. I'm making it louder. I'm increasing the volume. Shouldn't I make the number go down? There it goes. There it's going down. 23, 22. How's that sound? A little bit better now?
Yeah, I think you're there. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
And sorry, John, I think I cut you off earlier. John put.
I was just going to say, Mickey, why don't you just go ahead and demote me, and then I'll figure out my audio chain later.
I mean, like, we can fully understand you. It's just a little just distracting with the clicks.
Yeah, I'd rather not distract from the show. It's too good of a show.
Nah, come on. It's
It
It don't
sounded
sound
fine
that
that
bad
time.
to me at all, John. I can understand it very easily.
Okay.
So stick around. So it's 8:01, and Alex hopefully will be back in mere moments. Hi, Aaron. It's good to see you in the panel this morning.
It's good to be back. I had some report cards I had to finish up last weekend, so couldn't come on, but
How
all
are the
done.
little ones? I say that because elementary school students, it's always wonderful to have a representative of that part of the education system in the panel.
Thank you.
How are your charges doing?
So far they're doing pretty well. They're getting a little antsy because very close to the holidays and break, and can lunch come sooner? Can we go out in the snow, and trying to accommodate everyone, but it's a great time.
That's nice. You have a lot of snow in Boston?
Oh yeah, I think we got about 10 to 12 inches.
Wow.
Roughly.
I'd be interested in the statistics as to, in Boston, in the public schools, with all the grade school students, how many gloves get lost every year?
So many.
Aaron,
So many.
Aaron,
Especially in the lost and found box. It's hats and gloves and scarves, and there's
Overflowing.
47 gloves, not 46, not 48, but 47.
I wonder what the percentage of them are just one glove.
Aaron, my lovely wife got to do substitute teaching, unfortunately, because a teacher is in the hospital because of COVID.
Oh.
But her little first graders that she got to now spend 2 weeks with, she was able to do crafts, and she put Ziploc baggies together with the materials inside, and we delivered it to the school, and the parents come and pick them up. And so the last 3 days, they got to make pictures of snowmen and do cutout snowflakes and things. And just to hear my wife be able to do what she does, yelling at first graders with lots of love, but again, no, come out from behind the tent. No, you have to take the blanket off your face. Oh, it was just,
Yeah.
it was magical listening to the other end of the building today, the room. So thank you.
Oh, I love
All
it.
right. Sorry, I was a little late there. I had a little technical difficulty with my tea. I'd love to say that it was more important, but I was having a little trouble with it. And my throat was a little scratchy today. So I was like, if I don't have the tea, I'm not gonna be able to do the show. All right. Let's jump into the questions.
Oh, okay. I've got a couple. Wait a second. I'm in the wrong place here, and I will dive into
So
the
if you
first
have
one.
questions, we have a handful of questions. It's up to you. Just a quick reminder, we're now shifting gears to education. We do this every Saturday, no matter what. We will tomorrow. I know some of you will wonder, are we going to do it on the 26th? And the answer is yes, of course we're going to do it on the 26th. I am taking Friday the 25th a little slower. We're not going to have a special 2-hour thing, or a special thing for the second hour, but otherwise, I'm still going to be here. In case you're wondering, my kids tend to sleep in on Christmas morning, so I'll still be here for that. Let's go ahead and jump into the next question.
Okay, Chris Clark starts us off from here on the panel. College freshman reports, I learned this first semester that I vastly prefer face-to-face learning over virtual. Concerned that enrollment numbers will drop in January, February. General problem or not? And is it affecting high school or not?
Go ahead, Laura.
I just put in the chat our university decided to not remove an entire population of students that were specifically freshmen this semester. They were on what we call conditional admission, and they got a 0.0 GPA for their first semester. They decided to give them all a second chance because our numbers jumped. They were almost triple for that population for the first semester.
You're muted, Alex.
Sorry, Benjamin.
Yeah, in terms of high school perspective, yeah, I go to a private high school, and I know that colors my opinion. But just in the past week, as cases have been surging in California, I've noticed a significant change. We've been doing every other week on campus, and now I see that like we went from almost everybody in person, and significantly happy to be in person, to more than half opting remote. Just while cases have been surging, and I definitely see people. It's this like really interesting balance right now. At least while cases are surging, it seems like everybody really loves being in person. Just the social aspect, the getting to see people face to face. I'm totally with you, Chris. And I personally love it. But with cases on the rise, it's a challenge.
Yeah, Michael, and then John.
Yeah, with my freshmen, I think it's hard to say what how much. I think they know they prefer in person. Whether or not they're taking a semester off is a little unclear to me. They I think a number of them feel like right now they don't have many options. So if they do take a semester off, what will they do? Is always the question. The group though that I actually see delaying or taking time off are seniors who are at their credits for graduation. Almost all of them have said, "I'm close enough. I can just bail now." And so the group that I've seen sort of leave the earliest are seniors who are right at their credit limit, and ordinarily would spend that last semester doing something fun or hanging around. In particular, people who are like my teaching assistants. A bunch of them have because they're the type to take their classes early and stuff. They've all or a bunch of them have decided that they're not going to hang around. So I think it does a little bit depend on what your options are.
John, and then Roscoe.
I put in the chat link to Brian Alexander. He's an educational futurist, and the whole tracking of how many high school students go to college, the turnover of first year students, declining high school populations. There's so many factors that affect whether people are going to go to college or not. Returning students, we have more students coming back to college if there's a recession. It could be manipulated in many ways, like the GI Bill, which really did an explosion of college admissions. So independent of COVID, there's a lot of flux in terms of what are the numbers and enrollment patterns. I think we're going to see a lot more of people going back to college who don't fit the high school graduate first-time student, and that will probably make up for some of the declines we're going to see in first-time students going there. But there are a lot of people thinking about this. On my campus, the numbers did not decline. And unlike you, Laura, we've had a better retention than we thought we would have. But there was a lot of effort working with the faculty to work with the students. I think that's the key. If faculty reach out to students, they tend to retain them better.
I think that one of the things that makes it hard, the numbers hard to track right now, is that there's probably the greatest reorganization of people and where they live in, I don't know when. I mean, maybe the history of the United States. like as far as pure numbers, maybe percentage wise, since people started moving west, but the amount of flux, because suddenly people not being constrained by their job to be forced into certain states. The numbers privately being kicked around in California is California could lose 250,000 to 500,000 people in 2020. Like, that's a big number, and then it just makes all these numbers to be like, that's the number people are talking about right now. It's 250,000 to 500,000 people will leave California. And the problem is then if you're only getting the stats from California, things don't make any sense anymore because you don't know what happened to them. Like our statistics aren't accurate enough to know how that turned out. Go ahead, Roscoe, and then back to John, and then to Bill.
Yeah, we actually over-enrolled because we assumed that a lot of people were going to fall off. They were going to apply and then actually not come, but actually the opposite happened. And so we're actually teaching more now than we've ever taught. Right. And it'll be interesting at the spring, what we get a lot of junior college transfers. So that'll be interesting to see whether or not people are transferring between the schools as much as, but those numbers aren't in yet that I know.
I think that actually the opportunity for schools to have people from all over the world be part of it, or at least all over the United States, be part of the school is greater than it ever has been if they built the infrastructure to support that rather than a Band-Aid between now and then. Go ahead, John.
That's going to be just interesting. Roscoe and I are both in the California State University system. He's in Southern California. I'm in Central. And the 23 campuses in the CSU, I think that's how many we have now, have what was called their service areas. So the students who they serve around them. A lot of students from Southern California come up to Northern California, and the same ours go south because they want to get away from their parents. Now that they've dispersed, we have a lot of students on our campus who are actually in Southern California, and they've talked about, well, can't I go to the campus that's near me to do something that's they would physically normally come to our campus? And so it's a whole idea of breaking down these service areas. Maybe we do have a CSU system, and if you happen to be a student at CSU Monterey Bay, you could go to Fresno, and Roscoe could be the advisor, but the course that they're taking is on our campus. We'll see if that happens. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Bill.
I just was interested in Benjamin's point of view on when you say that the kids largely want to go back, but they're not showing up after a while. Do you think that's mostly parents just putting their foot down and saying, no, my first responsibility is to keep you safe, and so no matter what you like, you aren't going back?
I think it's two factors for sure. I think it's I think my school is doing such a good job at. I mean, I like being a spokesperson for my school, but I think we're doing a decent job at making an in-person and an remote experience where people get roughly the same information, whether they're at school or not. Seniors really like to sleep in, and they get to sleep in a lot more if they're at home. So I think for some kids who wanted to just it's effectively just taking a day off, except you just kind of zoom in. So in comparison to being at school, I think that certainly plays a factor right before winter break.
I know what's funny for us is because we both work at home, the kids going back to school is a huge disruption actually for us because we have to now drive them into school, so that, it's become a problematic. And then the other thing that I have to factor in is, if I get COVID, it's expensive, for a company. And so my frustration is having our kids pulled back into it. Now my kids are very committed to it, so we'll end up taking them back in if the school wants them to. Because they'd be very difficult to be with if they really want to go back and see their friends. So I can be a father to some degree, and then after that I just have to take orders. So anyway, so they really want to go back and see their friends. So but I know that for me it's hard because I still think of schools. I know that the stats aren't there. They say, oh, well, the schools aren't super spreaders, but that seems very illogical to me. I just think that they're not showing symptoms. And so I think that, just seeing I think the spread this fall is all from schools. Not all, but 50% of the schools, and it's just showing up in the adults. And they're like, I don't know how we got it, how all that spread so quickly. And so as a person it would be expensive to get sick, I worry about it a lot, when my kids go back to school, but they enjoy it too much for me to turn it off. Go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, so I had a question for Chris, who put the question up. Was that just a anecdotal, I heard a freshman say this, or is this based on a majority of the freshmen are saying this?
Well, in a way, that was the question, Kent. I got my data from one freshman who lives in my house and is a grandson. So it was a real tight case study. But the question is especially to the educators who are out there at other institutions and so forth, are you as worried as I am about what's going to happen or not going to happen over the break, when young people are looking back on the experience and deciding whether to re-up or not, or wrestling with this. I'm sure faculty members and teachers are also in a state where they've finally let out their breath. And now what am I going to do by January 5th or whatever the resume date is? Am I really going to go back or not? So I think this period of time, this month or so, 3 weeks, is going to be a risky or critical or potentially fast-moving time for enrollment.
I'm actually amazed at how successful it's been, because, I mean, as a parent and the current cost of college education, there was zero chance I would have done that. Like zero chance I'd pay for my kids to go to college this year, just because I just don't feel like they're ready for it. Like the college isn't ready. Like there's 100% chance I would send my kids to an online college that was designed for it, and this is exactly what they do, and this is how it's all built for it. And if I was persuaded that the college had prepped for it and it's all they're worried about, but as soon as they said hybrid, I would be like, oh, I don't want to pay for that. And so the thing is that as a parent, I'd be like completely disengaged. So when I look at the level of enrollment that the college has had, I'm kind of amazed at how well they've done in keeping students in tow when parents or loan officers or someone is paying an incredible amount of money for a less efficient system than it was already. Go ahead, Bruce.
Are there any indications or data or something about changes in the directions of students into more vocational kinds of things rather than the standard college fare? Does anybody have any statistics about that, as to whether there's any
the hard part is a lot of the vocational is in person. A lot of the vocational training is in person. I mean, I believe there should be more vocational for virtual, like computer graphics and so on and so forth. I think that should be considered vocational, in my opinion. Video production and computer graphics should be vocational, not.
Well, I would include that in the directions. But the question is there any kind of a movement away from the traditional college that anybody has seen?
Go ahead, Chris.
I think it's too soon to tell, Bruce. Especially for freshmen and sophomores, where it's unclear with a lot of them what their quote unquote major is going to be in the long run. So it's a worry, but it's not, there's no data.
Yep. Laura?
We're doing exit surveys with all our students, even our suspended students right now that aren't able to come back. So we will have that data probably the end of January, beginning of February.
Great. Benjamin?
Just on your point about paying for a hybrid education, I think as I've been going through the admissions process, trying to see how everybody's been adapting their admissions events, it's really interesting to see there's a wide variety of responses. Not necessarily admissions is not necessarily indicative of how the college will treat their students, but in some way, right? There's some indication. If they're doing a decently produced webinar, it gives me some hope that there's somebody there who knows what they're doing. And there are some schools out there who offer a webinar every single day of the week, and it makes me really wonder who's heading their content strategy. Only that, like, if they really want to be capturing potential students, like what do they think the students are spending their time on? And anyway, so it just makes me wonder. And I haven't seen inside, right? I've seen inside like one school, but I haven't seen really. It's hard to tell at this point.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a huge opportunity for schools. I've always felt like there's a huge opportunity for schools to build a kind of a feeder system, that's a little bit more effective than what we've seen in the past, where I started taking my first college courses when I think I was like 13 or 14 years old, specifically around horse production. So I learned a lot about genetics and feed and spacing and everything else. But there was a community college I could go to, and so I was taking college courses on that. But I felt like it started to build a bridge that. Maybe not that community college. I took some other courses at Penn State, and then I ended up doing more at Penn State, but I started it in high school and then moved up and then just kept on going. And I think there's an opportunity when you think about a virtual college of letting more high school students or even younger, audit the class. They can't ask questions. They're not going to be tested, but be able to audit courses and be maybe part of some kind of community and discussion that basically builds this sphere of influence that school has on those students, that they are interested in it, they're integrated, they're learning it, they're connected to that school, they're seeing what it offers. And so then they're not really up. And then the school also, to some degree, depending on how aggressive they get, could actually let those students participate, where you actually know whether those students are good students, regardless of their SATs or anything else, because they're already interacting with your courses. They're not getting credit for it, but they're interacting with that. And it just seems like it's kind of like a baseball, farm team, or people getting ready for that, where you're connected to those things and just keep moving forward. It seems like in a physical world doesn't make any sense, but in a virtual one, it might. Michael, and then Kent.
Yeah. I think that still could make sense if there is, a physical campus and you decide how to incorporate that virtual content, because I think for some of the larger schools, that is what iTunes U was, 15 years ago when it started. For a lot of those schools, there wasn't a facilitated community, but they arose. And then, I guess almost 8 years ago now with MOOCs, that similar thing started to happen as well.
Right.
And then each of these things I think the tricky part would be melding the virtual students with enrolled students, and how you manage that in a way that is, I guess, sort of acceptable to all parties. And
I think that the thing that I was thinking about related to that, as people were talking, was the idea that the auditioning students, or the students from high school or grade school or whatever that are watching that, are not in the same sphere. They're kind of like they're watching the same content, let's say live. There's some TAs and possibly even some of the other students that are willing to be part of it that are answering their questions, but they're not distracting the teacher from the experience for the students. So the students that are paying for it, that are in college, they're getting all the attention, but there is some extra people that have volunteered out of that student body to work with the high school students to answer questions and manage them and help them be part of it. But again, in a physical world, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like it would be impossible to manage. But in a virtual one, where you could have 400 or 800 or 1,000 high school students all watching, Communications 101 or whatever, and then asking questions of a handful of volunteer students. It's not the same, but it would be very valuable. And again, they may go back and take that course, but now they're going to take it after taking it, maybe even a couple times. Yeah. Go ahead, Kent.
So I had a question for Benjamin. So Benjamin, what would be the perfect college recruitment scenario for you? And you see this and go, oh, that's a school I'm going to. And by the way, I'm going to bring that to our my advancement team, and we're going to send it to you. So.
Thank you. Let me color this a little bit first, just so you understand my perspective. So I'm primarily looking at small engineering schools, small medium engineering schools, and that of course colors my opinion. I had an opportunity to have a virtual tour, some kind of PowerPoint thing, or whatever kind of virtual tour you want. And then they said, "Hey, do you want to talk to our tour guides?" And I was like, "Yes, please." And I joined their Zoom link, and there were 2 tour guides sitting with me and the rest of the tour group, and we just chatted for an hour. Not so dissimilar like our post-show discussion. And you get to know the students, you get to hear more about the school, you get to ask your personal questions, much like you do in person. And that sounds really awesome. And then that college followed up later. It's like, "Hey, do you want to visit some classes?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I went and I joined some of their Zoom classes. Cost them little to nothing for me to join their Zoom class, but it was pretty sweet, and I got a pretty good inclination of what a class would feel like.
And I think that's it. You're pointing to exactly what I was kind of talking to there, of students really getting a sense of what the school is, the school possibly getting a sense of what the students are, and building a much longer relationship rather than just a random, you're in this situation where you have to make that decision really quickly. I didn't really consider anything other than Penn State, because I already had a connection to it. It wasn't something that I was not looking around. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Now, one other thing Benjamin said, which is that seniors have reached they've graduated. They're really just, what's the time when you're marching, but you're not going anywhere? They're just, making time, waiting for school to end. And that's not always good, because sometimes they academically fall off, and then college hits them with a tough class. And next thing you know, they're on that list that says, "Hey, you don't get your act together, as Laura said, we might toss you." And so that's a really interesting problem too right now. Yeah.
I will. My only advice for seniors, if any seniors are watching, is just make sure to count all your credits really carefully. I don't have a high school degree actually because I didn't count that quite. I took 11 study halls my spring of my senior year. Now you'd think that I just hung out, but I actually set my mind on trying to break every physics record in the school. So I spent an enormous, like it was like I just did it so that I could focus on the thing that I cared about. And they had to restructure the grades because of some of the stuff I was doing because I had a lot more time than everybody else. So because they were building things against the top score, and that was difficult when someone is spending 6 extra hours a week on it. So anyway, so I just counted well. All those early college courses did me well because I used those as my transcript. Anyway, go ahead, John Hiddleston.
I just say, Benjamin, that was really exciting to hear you describe that. It'd be interesting with the COVID, but prior to COVID, when we did campus tours, the main thing we had to do was separate the students who were thinking of attending from their parents. So we get the parents in another room talking about the campus, and then get the students visiting, talking to other students. That we feared was the main key. You have students talk to students.
Agreed. In the few in-person tours I've done, just real quick, it's just like that was absolutely the key, right? You get your diverse groups, you separate them, and you get them to talk to like people. It makes you really like that school.
That's great. Next question.
Jake Hamilton of North Hollywood says, my sister is an online teacher tutor who recently got a new office space to teach in. Does the group have any suggestions for helping her create a cool background that could enhance the experience for her students?
I'm partial to gray. I mean, I think that what you're, the thing that I would argue in that area is gray or color. And you see a lot of different colored lights here, a little bit of that kind of thing. I think what it does is the reason that I wear so many things that have so little color is so that my head pops out. It's all about me. But it's about creating it's a very focused thing to create a simple visual for the person to watch, so that when I'm talking, so I'm not doing it by accident. It's that it creates a neutral background. That means that you're not trying to figure out what's in my background. I did have a green screen earlier, and I decided that I actually like it to be plain. And what's interesting is that so standard issue in our company, if you're going to be talking to clients, is you get a gray screen, you get a light, and we had one of the clients just looking at it, and there was like 4 of us in a meeting, and they were like, who are you guys? like it was like, because everybody looked, like it was slightly different grays, but it was all kind of very plain. But when you fill it up that way, it looks really nice. A little color, I think, is great. I think a bunch of people here use it, and I like it. I feel like the reason I don't use it, I should use it for this show. I don't use it for client shows because I feel like it makes me look like I'm working too hard at it. And so the gray is just kind of a nice background, in that area. But I would keep it simple because it allows people, what you really want them to do is watch you. Another secret is that you are working in a constant bit rate. So just remember this when you're doing Zoom or Skype or anything else. You have a limited budget for how many bits you get to use. When you do this, you apply all that budget to this. So complex backgrounds decrease the quality of your foreground because you're stretching less or the same amount of jam over a growing amount of bread. Anyway, Kent, go ahead.
Yeah,
And then
the
John.
one thing that has really helped is
Kent, by the way, this looks great. You improved your look over the last one, which was already really good.
Yeah, I just have a lens with a really big aperture, so everything's out of focus. That's either hide or make it out of focus. Yeah,
but it's more contrasty too. You have a more contrasty background than you had before too, and I think you pop out real
light.
nicely.
Yeah, everything I learned is from
Very
here.
nice. Yeah, it looks really nice.
Thank you. That's I'm gonna tape that and put that on my portfolio somewhere. That Alex Lindsay said something looked nice.
It looks great. It looks great.
Anyway,
I noticed it right when you popped in.
The background for me is a green screen because I got an ATEM Mini, and being able to use the upstream key on that, if you mix that properly with Keynote, you are able to do some amazing things. It could just be a black background. You can actually put your slides next to you like over here, this is what we're looking at. And so a green screen, and if you can use something like an ATEM Mini, that just opens the possibilities a ton. So.
The other thing to remember is that, and I'm not going to be able to show it to you today, but you can also do the same thing with a gray screen or a plain screen where you can just throw text over top of it. It's even easier in some cases where you can just kind of have things pop up. I'm been tooling with it as I'm slowly building it. I brought all the SDI tools home so I can start building cables this weekend, and so you'll slowly see the system come back up again. But I've been playing with my little ATEM Mini, and I have been playing with the idea that if I'm doing courses, is to have text and images pop up right next to me. I think is going to be a really interesting way to manage that.
And that's with the downstream key. Like that's one thing I've been trying to learn the difference with the downstream key and the Luma, right? If you have just a plain background, you just throw everything up there.
The main thing is just making sure nothing in the foreground has a real pure black. I've been playing with it. I'll hopefully show it to you guys next weekend. I've been playing with it over the last couple of days. I've even having little 3D objects that I can manipulate using USDZ and have them floating next to me. Like I can sit there and pull them, and they're rotating around, and you're able to see them rotating, but they're floating next to me. And then the next piece of that is trying to be able to draw on top of that. So I know this will sound crazy, but the idea is that you'll see an object floating around, and then I can circle it, and you'll see it like a piece of glass over top of me. Like it's trying to figure out that kind of whole immersive experience. But the flat screen in the background makes that all those things easier. Go ahead, Sky, and then John.
So I mentioned to Laura earlier that my wife was able to modify her background because she moved into the dining room, and we got her a little camera so she could use over the head, and she was able to do her crafts and just put them right up on the wall behind her.
Yep, that's great.
So she had again, she's learning from you all, from me to learn. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. John?
Just Kent, you're too modest. You should put the link to the video that you showed how you were doing things with Keynote. Kent did a beautiful thing for faculty members. It's one that I share with my faculty group. Also, those light boards that people could write in front of. There's a company that's going to be, it's Huddle Cam. They're going to be selling one that's less expensive and easier to do with the camera built into it starting in January. So it'd be fun to do a light board before the black background. I think of you, Kent, because you were doing it so well on your little video. So I thank you. It's been used and shared.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing I will advocate for is if you can have something in your background that's tied to your lesson plan. Again, it would be very specific to what you're doing, but if you've got a history class and you can have an object of history or some sort of reference, I would put that there. But other than that, I'm along with Alex. I do believe in having props that you can easily reach that are on camera so that it ties into the lesson.
And I will admit that I'm, as for my own visual thing, I don't like a lot of stuff behind people. So I think that I find it to be distracting. I have a hard time as someone with diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia as a kid. Anything behind you is a distraction for me. Like I think it's probably why I go for things that are really simple too. Is that you add a bunch of things. For me, everything has to be added only when you need it, for only as long as you need it. So that's probably why I hate people's PowerPoints so much, is they put stuff up and it's really hard for me not to read ahead of them and then go thinking about something else and then forget that they were even there. like I just completely go away. I'm off to something else. So anything behind me, I always look as a liability if I leave it there. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just looking at it as a producer. If I was going to do an instructional design for something, and I think this is 100% dependent on the subject you're teaching, but if they had to refer to imagery, I would set up something and maybe use a huddle cam so that I had my normal full screen. I'm in the center. I had a secondary button that was push me to the side and put a window so that they could see the overall thing. And then I would probably have a third position where I was really pushed over and then the full screen behind me so I could actually point to specific things and detail and direct their attention to that. And I would just go back and forth between those three buttons. But there are some teachers who wouldn't need any of that.
And generally, I'm a much bigger fan of a switcher just switching back and forth between the content, because that switching function wakes people up. Like going back and forth is actually something that keeps people awake. once you start staying in front of your content all the time, the brain will start to sort that out, and then it just becomes a static it becomes static, and the brain moves to passive listening really quickly, rather than active. And to me, my obsession is trying to keep people inactive as long as possible. Next question.
Moving on to Chuck Wojak of Concord, California. I have a Zumba instructors who want to share music, but also have a room mic that picks up their shouted instructions. They do not want to wear a mic. Any suggestions? Zoom clips and edits their audio between the music and the voice. If one sounds good, the other does not.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, this is one there's a gal, and I'll post a link to it in a second, who does yoga instructions, and she has a whole setup, and she uses loop audio hijack and loopback to route her audio properly. So
I was wondering how long it was going to take someone to say audio hijack and loopback, because it is the answer. It's like that's how you can't have them compete against each other. They have to be in the same stream, and the way to do that is with those tools. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, that was also going to be my first suggestion. Invaluable tools just to have around for teaching as well. The other thing I'd recommend is going into Zoom's advanced audio settings and fiddling with the amount of processing that it does, depending on your environment, especially the background and noise canceling. It may be doing a lot of work that you want to leave some of it on, but definitely playing around with the suppression level can make a difference in how much it's canceling something out.
And then the other thing to think about is, if you really don't want to wear a mic, just know that as you move away from that source, you need to treat the room. So that's you basically, it puts the responsibility somewhere else. You don't get out of it. You just have to treat the room. Now, I've said many times, my sister-in-law does yoga with a headset mic, and it works really well. Samson headset mic with a Rode Go, and she's really successful at it. But where it really works there is to have to really treat the room. You put, whether it's moving blankets or actual sonics or something around, all the way around to cover everything, so that you just don't have a lot of echo. You can really get away, and then you put a shotgun mic somewhere in there, and you can get away with a lot more than you would otherwise. So it's just something to think about. One thing that I have been thinking about is the portal for yoga teachers, because of its ability to reframe. I've been wondering whether that's a strong solution of it being able to, like yoga teachers and Zumba teachers, they can move around the frame, they can do what they need, and it's kind of smartly grabbing onto that. I haven't tested that though. Next question.
Jake Hamilton of North Hollywood asks, I purchased a Stream Deck, the 15 button, as a holiday gift for a virtual teacher. Looks like you can do some really cool stuff. What are your favorite ways to use it?
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, so I might have the cable tied a little bit too tightly around here, but I have mine set up to using the companion app control my ATEM, which is super useful. So I have primarily my view and computer, which would be like one thing that I do pretty commonly, swapping back and forth. The other thing that I do is, this is pretty specific, but my camera has an HTTP API. It's a Zcam. So there's some really useful settings there for saying white balance and focus. But the main thing that I use it for is back and forth. If you have just the regular Stream Deck app, you can set up things for easier buttons for mic muting, toggling in Zoom. And there's a couple like system functions that are in there, like a do not disturb one if you're on a Mac can be really useful to make sure that if you are doing any sort of screen sharing, that is on before the screen sharing goes on. I have definitely been in the mode of recording videos, and then my girlfriend texts me, and then I have to go back and redo that because I forgot to try and do not disturb. So fortunately nothing, but just making sure that you have sort of your environment all set up. And then a couple other things that I think are just useful are just things for in the Zoom app of just like making sure if you need to like mute or unmute your overall system, or not the Zoom app, the Stream Deck app, you need to mute or unmute system volume, and other applications like that can be really handy.
I use it for playback a lot, forward, back, pause, things like that. Like if you look at any of the teardowns that are on the Pixel Core page on YouTube or whatever, that's all done with a Stream Deck. I need it, like it just makes it much easier for me to do that. Next question.
Ken Kersey is in with, what are your thoughts about using background music in educational content videos? When done well, music adds a nice texture. When not done well, it's distracting.
I think it's really hard to do well. I think that's my thing. Like, if you're talking about the music or you're talking about something, I think it makes sense. I think that using it as just a general atmospheric, there's so many other things going on. I think that those, that becomes challenging, to get it right. And depending on what platform you're on, Zoom isn't that touchy about it right now, but every platform, as it becomes more successful, eventually lawyers from Warner Brothers and everybody else starts calling, and then everything tightens up. So it just becomes more and more difficult. Roscoe, and then Kent.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've had Smart Sound for a really long time. Actually, long story short, I actually showed the Smart Sound people at a KCET function how to actually use Smart Sound for video, and then that became a major part of their market. Not that I had anything to do with them growing. They were really good at what they did. It works in about 1 out of 10 instances where you have a scene. Now I'm doing narrative work, so we can find music in Smart Sound that actually supports where we want that scene to go. The problem is without a scoring, without having someone actually changing it at the exact moment where you want it to, you don't rarely find stuff that supports it the way you want it to. That's a narrative. And so it's the same in corporate. You're trying to make this point and suddenly the music is crescendoing and going somewhere. And you're like, that kind of distracts from the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of where, Alex mentioned that it's better not to have it than having it distract. But every once in a while, when you see it done right, because really the bottom line of a video is you want students to feel a certain way when it's over, and music plays such an important role in that. Even though you're not really thinking about it, you don't even know it's happening. It's just happening intuitively. So Roscoe, what is that Smart Sound? What is that?
The Smart Sound is basically predetermined loops. The nicest thing about Smart Sound is you say I need a 92.4 second loop, and it will do its best it doesn't just fade out at 92.4 seconds. It will put together a sequence of loops that when it gets to 91 seconds, it starts to come up da 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 da. It comes to an actual musically complete thought ending, and it's really cool software. Smart Sound, now called.
So is
Sonic
that an
Fire.
app? Or
Yeah,
like a
Sonic Fire
plugin,
Pro.
or?
You buy the app. Well, you get the app free, but what you're actually buying is loops. So you buy the corporate loops, or you buy the. I'm sure we could get a demo of it because they really do like to support video people.
Yeah, and specifically, this is Sonic Fire. Is that right? Sonic Fire Pro is what you're talking about.
It's now Sonic Fire Pro from Smart Sound. Yeah. But you're buying the loops. You're paying for the loops. You used to pay for actually CDs, DVDs. Now you actually buy them and you download them. And you can test a whole bunch of their stuff. So go to their site and demo it.
I've been using that for years, and Larry Jordan is another Final Cut user and Premiere teacher. He's been using this, and he does a lot of the training for this. And there's also an interactive ability within Final Cut and their software, but it's pretty awesome because you can also select the stems if you don't want, the drums, if you don't want the strings, if you only want. So they have a lot of presets, but then there's a lot of manipulable ability in there as well.
Yeah, that's great. And right now it's on sale, according to their website. All right, go ahead, Roscoe.
Okay, let me throw one thing in quick. The thing I do is I export the strings, and then and so the thing is the time is set. So you export all the different stems as separate tracks, and then pull them into a multi-channel mixer and do a live mix. That's what I do all the time.
What have you played with Sonic Fire, Mickey?
Apologies for intense rain happening in the background. No, I have not.
Oh. For long sections of time between events, like where you have just slides coming up, it means that you can pull the stems and you could probably mix that in stereo or better. Just thinking about that. Anyway, Bill.
Yeah, the only and I like Sonic Fire. I think I messed around with it for years. I moved a little bit to buy out music that I custom edit to the lengths. And the reason I do that is because I can access 6 or 7 different libraries, and the chance that somebody else has used that thing in the area that I'm using it is less. The only downside to Sonic Fire is that everybody has access to the same loops, and all the people who use that tend to go to the A list of the Sonic Fire sounds. And I've heard it multiple times for other people.
Next question.
All right, moving on to Laura Thompson here in the panel, Beaumont, Texas. Can Benjamin talk about the experience of taking the SAT or the ACT?
Sure. Apologies for video issues a moment ago. Laura, briefly, I took the SAT. I've been taking PSATs 10th grade, 11th grade, and I decided to take the SAT after like a preliminary thing that my school offered, some kind of a diagnostic of sorts, which test is better for you. And yeah, I was really fortunate to not be significantly impacted by testing delays. I had scheduled to take it in June, and then that one got so the March one got canceled. For those who are unaware, testing got canceled as COVID came around. So March got canceled, May got canceled, June got canceled, and most of August got canceled. I was very fortunate to take it in August at a school-based administration. But I had lots and lots of friends who are not going to submit a test score this year. And it seems like almost every college who might consider the SAT in a significant fashion in their admissions decision is saying that they are test optional. And usually with some kind of asterisk like, no, really, we really don't care. And that's really great. I hope that continues.
Might be the end of SATs and ACTs, which would be great. Next question.
James Babbitt here in San Diego is here with, when a teacher makes videos for students to watch before they meet in class to discuss the material, what would a teacher include in said videos?
Go ahead, Ken.
I think the key is to use whatever you're going to cover, do it quick and use graphics that have the quotes and all that sort of thing that you're going to be using. And then also have a listening guide, some sort of PDF or something that you have with that to point them towards the major points, maybe in questions. You know, when did Descartes live? What was the difference between, you know, Hume and Kant about this question or something? And so you're keying them to look for certain things. That's super important. And just make it quick and put everything up there on the screen.
I think for some subjects, I would prefer it. I mean, because we did this, and we're moving more and more towards this with this program, is, you know, we're going to put out a podcast in January. I don't know if it'll be January 1st, but we'll be very near it, where it's just this show, but, you know, in audio form. And the one thing that I've often thought of is long form stuff. So if I'm going to do a video more than 5 minutes long, I start thinking about how much am I showing? You know, like, could I just do it? The old Ask Alexes, which were in the Pixel Core, where literally people would just email questions in within the group. And then I would just sit down in a sound booth and answer all the questions and then send them out. This is much better because we have a whole panel. It's not dependent on me, my limited knowledge. But I think that for teachers, I think that having a great mic, you know, and being able to I think some of the stuff can be a discussion where you can just listen to it like an audiobook, you know, is great for students to be able to just kind of walk around and listen to it. Some students, I know I listen better when I'm walking. So it's just, you know, it's just a better environment. But
when
I think some
do
students
it,
would love to be able to absorb it.
Yeah, when I do it, I try to also make when I'm thinking about it, I'm not saying, now look at the screen and see this. I'm trying to read it all too. And then I will also have it as a podcast where with a separate link that people can go and listen to it later. People who don't have good audio, they could just download that link and then they could listen to it. Same kind of thing. When you're, you know, studying for a test, you can put that back on as you're driving to Portland or something, and it's just playing there.
Yeah, because I know that watching a presentation makes me very agitated. Like if it just sits there on a still with someone talking for a long time, because I feel like I'm monotasking now. You know, I'm stuck in like watching this thing and I can't walk around and I can't do anything else. And they're not doing anything. Like if it's constantly moving, love that. If it's just sitting there with a still and you're kind of going through points, I hate that. So it's just as a recipient of it, Laura, and then John, and then Benjamin, and then Michael.
In a nutshell, I would tell teachers, whatever you're going to put up before the class, make it so that they understand that this is the content and we're going to go deeply into discussing and breaking down what you don't understand during the live session. So that to get students conditioned to, and I think I lost you guys.
We can hear you. I don't know if you can hear us.
Okay,
you're frozen.
okay, yeah, I've got issues. I might be back. But yeah, basically, so that they understand that this is important before you come to class, because class isn't what class used to be, and it's got to be.
Yeah, managing people's expectations that you can't just listen in class and get an A is important. You know, like there's going to be this is the material that you're actually going to be tested on, and classes are for you to clean up that your understanding of that material, which is go ahead, John Pewitt. Yes, no.
Still muted, John.
Yeah, I have a lot of monitors. And
You're gonna have to work on that
mouse
system though.
sometimes
You're
is
gonna have
hard.
to. If you raise your hand, you're gonna have to have it right underneath.
But I
That's all I'm saying.
put my hand back down.
No, you can't do that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you put your hand out. You didn't mean to do it. Okay. See what people
No,
get
I
upset
did,
about.
and then somebody covered what I was going to say, so I put it back down.
See, the problem I get into as kicking around is people will raise their hand, and if I call on them, then they put their hand down, and then I just know that I'm going to go to them later. I do that trying to tell them that you don't have to keep holding your hand up. I see you.
But I put my hand down before you called me, which is weird.
Oh, I was trying to be nice. All
know,
right.
I know.
Move on. Benjamin.
I almost forgot what I was to say. Just briefly, like this is a known thing. This is kind of what you're describing as a flipped classroom.
Flipping the classroom.
Yeah, and it's been around for a while. And a very effective way I've seen it done is like, let's say you're going to learn about derivatives today in calculus class, and so instead of listening to a teacher lecture for an hour about derivatives, you instead sit and watch a video, and you do the examples along with them. And you have to turn in your notes. You watch your teacher annotate on an iPad or whatever, do their notes. And then in class, you have time to do your homework, work in small groups. Teacher comes around and sees how you're doing. You get to ask your questions. It's a very effective style for certain lessons.
It is. I think that we're going to experiment a lot with that here. Our first test will be Resolve, just because I just need something that I have video of and audio of. But the goal, that kind of where I'm going with that, is that here are some really well built videos by Ripple Training. Here is additional homework that this is optional stuff that you can read that will deepen your understanding. Here's a forum on Discord that you can start talking about it. And then here's the live interaction where we discuss things that still didn't make sense after all of that. So the idea is this huge kind of scraping through. And then if I get enough time, here are some audio discussions you can listen to when I'm talking to colorists or editors or things that are related to that subject. But the idea is to give you access to just a ton of information. The first time around, I don't know how successful it'll be, but I have a feeling that if we get into that, where you're just all these different versions of this stuff is coming at you, and you're able to work on it, and challenges. Here's some footage to cut together. I think we could teach a lot of people really fast. And of course, I'm trying to accelerate just the speed of acquisition. Roscoe?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was going to just say, I have about 15 videos that introduce new concepts, and they actually get those all in their Dropbox. Each class has a Dropbox. They get them all up front. So, and they're labeled. They're actually 1A, 1B. Here's a concept.
You can watch them all if you want.
You can watch them all if you want, but then they will be reintroduced, and they can go back to them. They can download them if they want. But then I have probably about 300 videos that support questions that I have had to deal with over the years, that I just grab it, pull it, show it to them, illustrate, move on. Yeah.
Well, and it's amazing to have the Q&A. Do you have those available? Those 300 questions, or those things they can just download? Like they can. Is there a way for them to search?
Every computer in my lab has that complete library on its hard drive.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. I've talked about this before. I'll just make it really quick. But we worked with a appliance company that wanted to just do call deflection, and just taking the top 20 questions reduced their call frequency dramatically. And it was and then they just kept on adding to them. So the idea is you take the most regular questions, you make a great video about it, and then people can just go grab it, and then if that didn't solve it, come to class and ask the question. But if it's the same question over and over again, have a way for them to just grab it and not just have to read it, but really just be able to grab it. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Well, I was going to say, the other thing is craft versus technology. Technology is going to change, so anything that you grab 3 years later, it's probably outdated.
Right.
And so, but the craft doesn't change. So you find yourself trying to find the best craft videos you can, not the best tech videos.
Yep, absolutely. Michael, and then Aaron, and then
yeah.
Sky.
I would say, when you say before class, the question is sort of, is this a complete flipped classroom in that you're going to be getting most of the lesson before you show up to class, or is this a setting the stage introduction of content? Is it essentially 5 minutes? Is it 15 or 20 or 30 minutes or whatever sort of time period you're working with? The main thing in either case, though, is I think working backwards from what do you want to happen in this class period where everyone is synchronous, and say, are we going to be jumping into problem solving in groups? Am I making sure that everyone just has the same prerequisite knowledge? So we're skipping sort of the boring intro. Let's spend half the lecture reviewing the last lecture every time. Like, that is, if you're just starting out cutting content, that's always a great thing to cut. But just ask yourself, when students come to class, what should they be doing? What page do I want everyone to be on? And once you have that answered, you can work backwards. And there's really, I think, no one right answer, but you have a lot of styles that you could work with in that setting of knowing where you want students to come into class. The other thing that I'd say is a good starting point is just sort of weekly or semi-frequent sort of class update announcement videos, especially if it's you're at an environment where there are things going on in your school that could be update information or class policies changing. Just like putting that stuff out there in a short video that is definitely very time sensitive, so it's not something you're going to edit necessarily and reuse forever, but just having that information in a way that takes it out of the main content and separates out to students what is going to be assessed and what is timely updates and those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, and then Sky, and then Chris.
So one of the goals I have for my third graders for this upcoming trimester is basically all my lessons I do live, and I have a video that goes along with it. And I always kept it in our Google Classroom, but I've actually now made a separate topic. So my goal going forward is to pull out all the videos and keep them in the video topic so that the kids can go back to it whenever they want and not have to sift through all the assignments to find what they were looking for. It'll all be there and very clearly labeled. So not as detailed as Roscoe's, but my version.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Who do I have next? Go ahead,
Sky. Well, yes, Benjamin, it's hard to remember what you're going to talk about, but the Roscoe, that's my t-shirt for the day, craft versus technology, because the delineation is, what does success look like? And then the old algorithm of, yes, the surgery was a success, but the patient died. And so that's my conundrum of some of this conversation. That's why Roscoe was so critical. So what does success in all of this, Alex? What does success look like?
Well, one of the things
I guess the question is why. Let's start with why.
One of the things that we did for technology specifically, as far as training goes, is that when we were training lots of people, I had a large number of people that I needed to train to use After Effects. And so the technology training was actually them doing it all in After Effects. And so we were able to update them all the time because we would just rebuild the whole thing. And rebuilding it wasn't a teacher doing it by themselves. It was sometimes 30 or 40 students that were already needing to learn, just learning how to do that. And so the updating of all the video assets was part of somebody's training. It wasn't part of the whole group's training, but there was a group that was learning how to animate, how to build videos, how to do everything else. And, updating these videos were something that was basically, when they got there, they didn't know how to use After Effects. And then when they were done with it, they were pretty good at it. And so it was, it was just a context of, let's update all these things and move all these things and reanimate them all and everything else. And it was a very effective way to, and I think that this is where maybe you get cross-pollination. I'd always dreamed of doing this outside of Pixel Core, of doing it in schools where you had students that are really interested in doing that. The concept I had that I haven't executed yet is the idea that you'd have media students, and the media students learn how to do production. Let's say they're in high school. They're going to learn how to do production, but they have to learn how to bid the production. They have to learn how to execute the production, how to manage the production. And the way you do that is you give the different school verticals, whether it's English or history or whatever, a budget. You get $1 million for $1 million, right, for the year that you can spend on animations. The media team, the media students will make these for you. You come in and say, this is what I want. I want to do animations and I want to have Napoleon go here and da-da-da-da-da. And so the teacher's saying what they want and the students go, okay. And they go out and they grab all the content and they put it all together, but they have to bid it to the teacher. This is how much this is going to cost, because the teachers have to have some kind of limited resource or they'll just ask for things forever, which is fine. But you only have a limited number of people. So we have to have some way to constrain that supply. And so they have a budget that they can ask for that semester or that year. Then the students are sitting there working away at it. So then now it's no longer part of what the teachers have to do. They're just asking for things that they want. And in years they can say, hey, I had this one that was really great. Can you make it a little bit better? I wish this was this or this. And then that budget might be much smaller to do revisions, right? And so the students, though, then they have to learn. They have to track their hours. They have to track how long it took them, and they had to do. The idea is they learn. Did we go over budget? Did we go under budget? Did we do it right? Did we lose our shirt? Did we, but they get to learn that production pipeline. And what the teachers get is a whole bunch of content, because a lot of times for the students, creating that, like figuring out what to do is hard. Doing it is not as hard. If you give them context of, a set of rules. Anyway, it was just where I first learned a lot of video production was actually doing fake news things for German class and for video, like different classes.
Sure.
And so I think that could be a really interesting way to get students engaged in these schools and giving them something to do. And it'd be like your first things you're doing, kind of thing.
And the practical of it is, I hear this exact same scenario inside of Microsoft. They call it, Microsoft money. And it's literally just moving between departments, budgets around. So,
right.
Again,
but this would be
time quality resources,
right.
And to learn the balance of those with the finished product, and that's awesome.
And if you think about it, it could be like freshmen are more PAs and support services, and seniors are more producers, and you go through the entire in high school, you go through that, and I think you could end up with a lot of students that were pretty good at what they did when they came out of high school, in that area with the right guidance from an instructor. Go ahead, Chris.
Get back to the question about videos in the flipped classroom. I recommend that the instructors think about the concept of the cliffhanger. That is, try to produce a short video that the answers to which will be discussed or revealed in our synchronous meeting, so that there's some incentive to resolve whatever the dilemma. The hook, as Sky is pantomiming there. It takes a little more imagination, but I think it'll pay off.
Yeah. That's great. No, next question.
Dan Maliska of Nelson, British Columbia is in with, my daughter is a riding instructor, and I'm assuming equestrian, but it might be motocross for all I know. As part of a course she is developing, she needs a place to host instructional videos. These videos will be embedded in a website. Assume 15 to 30 students watching 1 hour of video per week from a library of 100 videos to start. Low-cost video hosting suggestions. That's going to be a little hard, I think.
John?
Well, depending on your use case, YouTube is free and you can host it there and embed it on your webpage. Now, that may not, if you're wanting to control access, you might need to look at something like Vimeo, but YouTube's free.
Vimeo is by far the most popular, because you can control access and you don't have a click through. So you can take the Vimeo logo off if you pay for it. And, it's the lowest cost, highest quality version of what you can do. It's been that way kind of for a long time, but those tools have gotten to be, there's so many places you can grow in Vimeo where you can even get to a point where, hey, this is really successful, and you can get them to build you a app for the App Store, both Android and, for a little bit of extra money. Now all of that's sitting inside of your own app. And so there's a lot of things you can do there that are really, really powerful. Go ahead, Bill, and then Michael.
Yeah, I'm 100% in favor of Vimeo Pro for something like that. Their embedding capabilities are, I think, second to none. The only thing is, with that much content, you're talking about 100 hours. You're going to get into needing a tier of service. It's going to cost you some money. So it's not going to be an inexpensive proposition to put that much content up and make it video on
You
demand.
have to decide how technical you want to get, and what you need out of it, because definitely you can, If you want to be a little technical and save money, you can put it on S3. Like you can, like you can just put it into the Amazon cloud, and there's players and things, and it's an extra week or two of you figuring out how to do it or hiring someone to do it, but you don't have that ongoing thing. The problem is you have to keep up with the technology. When you start building your own player or rolling your own, you're kind of keeping up with it. What you're paying for is not only Vimeo to resource it for you, but you're paying for them to keep up with all the things that change and security and everything else. It adds up pretty quickly if you have to do it yourself, and you can get all kinds of breaches and so on and so forth otherwise, or things breaking down. Michael, and then Guy, and then John, do it.
I think for low cost, YouTube with the unlisted strategy and embedding those in whatever platform you're using will probably be, about what you need. And there's a couple things of like, if you are using a dedicated platform to host your site, whether that's something like Squarespace or Canvas LMS, there's probably an automatic pull from a YouTube URL and drop that in and organize those. The other thing that can work is Google Drive supports the same viewer infrastructure that YouTube does, but is much more private. You don't have comments or any of the other YouTube stuff. It's just the YouTube file player and a list of files. But that can be really useful if you have the Google Drive storage. I think S3 is pretty low cost, but if you're not careful with how you encode your videos and you don't have multiple encodings, you will pay a lot more in bandwidth than you're probably expecting as well. Because the best thing that YouTube does is the dynamic bitrate of what it's delivering to people. So I personally think for low cost and easy, YouTube is there. The other thing now is if you haven't played with it recently and you do have a defined set of users, YouTube has been enhancing their share privately features. I'm not sure what accounts they're on, but I know if you're part of like a G Suite account of any sort, you can control within an organization who can view those videos.
If you're talking about doing it out with students that are not part of your organization, the thing gets really sticky. It's not really. It's really designed to be a service for G Suite and then also for review, and it's really hard to get outside of that box.
Yeah,
without it being wonky. Like it's not that you can't do it; it's just that you can't do it well. It's not seamless for the experience for the viewer.
I mean, if you had 15 to 30 is the level that I think you could manage that if that's what they're targeting in terms of number of students.
Right. I'll go ahead, John, and then Guy.
You could look at using both a hybrid solution of YouTube and Vimeo, putting the stuff that's more proprietary up on Vimeo, and then using some of the stuff on YouTube as promotional material to get people there and save some on your cost that way.
And Guy?
Yeah, we use a combination of all of them, but the YouTube one is kind of a distraction because you get so many thumbnails popping up on the sidebar, and that can take people's eyes off of what you're trying to concentrate on. So we have the best success with Wistia. So it's wistia.com, and that's where we really lock things down, and we have a lot of control. And you can also check heat maps. You can check what the ISP was that they were coming from. So there's a lot of intelligence that you can get behind there. And then there's real strict lockdowns if you want to lock that thing down to where only a few people can see it.
Wistia, Wista.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. Next question.
And that comes from Sarah Rushanek in Coral Gables, Florida. Do you have any suggestions for microphones under $100 for using Zoom?
Oh, do we? So the one that's the most popular, the two that are most popular. Well, go ahead, Benjamin.
Just real quick, this person was asking in the chat before, specifically mentioned a wireless mic.
Oh, wireless under $100. Suddenly everyone was real excited there for a second, and then we're all like,
anything below Rode Goes, which are more expensive than that, but I don't think there's anything that we would.
I mean, the thing that we would, I think under $200, you're talking about Rode Goes, and you're talking about Ceramonic has a series of things that are in the $100 to $200 range. Under $100 in wireless is you're just don't do it anywhere at high profile. That's all. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Because they may already have it, iPhones, Android, devices,
right.
you have two devices
iPhone.
into the same Zoom meeting, and you use your iPhone as a microphone.
Yep. Yeah, you can use your AirPods would be probably the best thing. And well, they're over $100 though. That's the problem. Go ahead. But if you already have them, they're free. But otherwise, they're still expensive. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say AirPods on sale, especially right now where they're kind of in that cycle. You can definitely, if you hunt for it, find some AirPods pairs that are probably about 115 instead of 100. But I think that's probably the easiest thing if you are on a Mac. I mean, they would work with the PC too, but the sort of syncing infrastructure will work a little bit easier on a Mac.
Yep. Benjamin?
Just real quick, just pointing out, A. Mitchell's noted that she's planning on sitting in the same place, so maybe also long cables might be sufficient.
Yeah, so if the only reason we would use wireless is if you're going to move around. Like, do not ever, I never, ever, I just ever, but never use wireless if I don't have to. Like, it is I need to move around and I'm going to be mobile is when you use wireless cameras. It's when you use wireless. And then even then we try to avoid it. Like, we try to go, do we really need to do that? Like, especially with cameras, but with mics, it may seem like it's convenient, but you are adding an enormous amount of variables. There's just so many things that go wrong with mics, especially in a live environment. If you run out of battery when you're recording, you're like, oh, let's do another take. Do it live, and it's just a pain, like, and it depends on how high profile you are. But the other thing is your audio, unless you're spending real money, and when I say real money, $1,000 to $2,000 per channel, your audio will always be worse than the wire. So your audio will never be as good. Sennheiser ENG, 100 or whatever, are never going to be the same quality of audio as you're going to get if you used a wired connection. Go ahead, Roscoe, and then Bill.
Yeah, Bill and I may go back this far, but they used to run the wire down your leg, and you wore a lavalier microphone and the wire went down your pant leg, and that you had to learn to not trip over those wires, but it worked. It's very effective.
If you go to Location Sound in Burbank, they sell these things called mic bullets, and what they do is they clip onto your TA4 or TA3 or whatever, but they clip onto that connection, and then all it is it's rounded on the front. It's a weight, so you can just run it down someone's shirt or run it down their leg or run it down. You just throw it and drop it. And the only problem with it is they got cute and they make it look like a bullet. So so it's got like the little ridge and everything else, and they call it the mic bullet. It's part of their branding, but super hard to talk to TSA about that. About why you have a thing that looks exactly like a bullet, and you're like, it's for a mic, and they're like, no, you're gonna have to. I've lost like 4 of them that way. Just I forget that they're in my bag, and anyways, Bill and then Mickey.
If you are going to go to a long wire, just go back and reference some of the times we've talked about balance versus unbalanced, because if you're using inexpensive gear and you have the 3.5 millimeter connection coming out of a little lavalier microphone and you run it a long way, that makes an excellent antenna, and you will get all sorts of noise that, unless you're running a balanced line, will not be defeated, and it will get messy.
Absolutely. Mickey?
Yeah,
and Scott, we already talked about the Rhodes. They're over $100.
Just going back to talking about the Lav Bullet by Sound Guy Solutions. They actually made a different version of it now because it always gets confiscated by airport security.
I started thinking it was like a business model. Like so many people will lose them that they'll just keep buying them.
They made a version now that's shaped like a little handheld mic, and they call it the mic drop.
Oh, there we go. Very good. Very, very well done. All right, next question.
A Rush, no location giving, trying to extend it to an SMOC, Sync Massive Online Open Course. Any experience among you all? And it continues, can a university hire you for Zoom webinars of college courses like the University of Miami Business IT Tech course? Note, the university offers first ever synchronous massive online courses. The University of Texas at Austin is proud to introduce the world's first synchronous massive online course in the fall of 2013. And the Introduction to Psychology, Sci 301.
So I think I'm trying to figure out what the question is.
Yeah.
And what's the difference? Do we know what the difference is between SMOCs and MOOCs? Go ahead, Michael.
The main distinction that they're making is a SMOC in this case would be a synchronous delivery, whereas MOOCs could be primarily at this point asynchronous. But technically, depending on how you break it down, it could either be two separate things or a subcategory of one.
Right. Good. Kent?
Yeah, well, MOOCs traditionally have been, asynchronous. I think Michael's right, is that trying to do those together, I don't see how that'll ever really work, because that would be really hard doing a synchronous, having it interactive, because the point of synchronous isn't just that it's on at the same time, but you need to have some sort of interaction with the students, or with whoever's watching. You have to ask the question, what is different? Why do I have to be synchronous for whatever I'm doing? And if it's just delivering information, it doesn't have to be synchronous. It can be asynchronous.
I do think that what's missing, and this is again what we're going to experiment with all next year, because it'll like the Resolve one is just the beginning. It's just because I have easy access to content and everybody can download the app for free on both platforms. And there's a bunch of reasons that I'm using that as the kind of the let's experiment with this as a group. But I think that it's the mixture of this, what we're doing here, what we've experimented with here for the last 8 months, and video and audio and examples that I think that what's missing in MOOCs, because I just find that I found them to be completely uncompelling. Like I would do a MOOC, I'd jump into some class and I'd be like, okay, I'm bored. And so I think that the need to have A, good video production for the videos, and B, that live component means we're going to talk about the subject on Saturday, every Saturday. And if you didn't, there's a push to, if I want to get that moment with the experts, I need to get the most out of it. I need to do something over this week. It's not just a asynchronous process. Go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, is a lot of times what we're discovering is people are saying, go ahead and do a synchronous class, but then put it up for an asynchronous thing as well. And I think that's wrong.
Which
I
is
think
what we're
if it's
doing.
going to be synchronous, you miss. Yeah. And I think you're right. Like on Sundays, I know it's what you guys do on Sundays. I missed a lot because I'm doing other stuff, but having that idea of, if it's synchronous, it's for that moment and then it's gone. Because
people talk me out of that, because I was very much like that when we started. I wouldn't stream this stuff, and then I would only stream the first hour, and then the problem was that it really became a thing that people wanted to be part of. There is still an advantage to being here live because you're really part of the conversation. There is no advantage if it's a lecture, in my opinion. But if it's a real discussion, there's advantage to being in the panel. That's different than being, in the group. There's an advantage of being an attendee over just listening to it later, because you can't participate with each other. The chat, the questions, the vote, like all of those things, you're driving that conversation forward, and that creates value for the live. But one of the reasons we didn't do YouTube, partially is I wanted to feel like I could speak a little bit more freely than I would streaming to YouTube and archiving to YouTube. But secondly, the other issue is that I knew that until we got to a certain size, that if I streamed, enough people would leave and watch it on YouTube or watch it later, that we wouldn't have critical mass for the actual conversation. And because again, my whole model is about, 100 and above. I find 100 and below to be just like pulling my skin off to teach. Like, I'm not interested in that number at all. Because it's just so slow, and this is so dense, and it's dense because we have so many people, and it'll get denser and denser and denser. Now there's problems with it at about 800 to 1,000 from my experience of what we've done. At 800 to 1,000, we have to build different models for scale to manage the questions and the conversation in a way that we couldn't before, because it's just too much. And it's partially if you have a well-trained audience to do that. So anyway, next question, and we'll kind of buzz through it. I actually have to be somewhere at 10 to move a big computer rack.
Well, this is Sarah Rushnick of Coral Gables, and she said, can Alex share his background with us? I'm assuming she meant your CV, not your pop-up, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that the background is my background, because I think she was asking about backgrounds before. My background is because my background is complicated and it would take a long time to talk about. My background. This background is a Lazulite, 6 foot by 7 foot. Made by Lazulite. It's white or black on one side and gray on the other. I bought ones that are white in the background, black in the background. The thing to know is that I do have another blanket that's on the other side of it, because I have a window facing south on this, and it'll have a bunch of texture to it if I don't have that extra blanket that's behind it. So it's a little bit thicker than that, than what you'd have there. But it's a lazulite. I bought a lot of them. For me, it's about 4 feet behind me, so I do need to have it. It needs to have. That's why it's so big. If you pull it closer to you, you can make it smaller, but then it's closer to you and you start seeing contact shadows, which I don't want. So anyway, lazulite makes it. Only place I found that I can buy it in a reasonable amount of time is B&H. It's the only one that carries it that I know of. Go ahead, Sky, real quick. I'm going to try to burn through.
Yes, this is what 1976 microphones used to be.
Okay, it's out of context.
No, I had to go find it.
I've been nice. I know, but I've been nice to other people when they're new, when they get out of turn. But once we go to the next question, it's over. You only have that time to do it. All right, next question.
Hey, Mitchell's in Washington is in with. Since the EDU tag always runs a lot overtime every week, is it worth returning to having 2 hours dedicated and scheduled to the education power second hour that has been done in the past, rather than saying it should just be 1 hour?
No, because we don't know. I don't want it to be, because the other thing is here's what happens. Is it'll go as long as we say it'll go, and then it'll want to run a little longer. The thing is I just want it to run until it runs out. We've been here for 3 hours sometimes, and 1 hour. It's Saturday. I generally don't have to be somewhere. And I feel like we just let it be a ragged. I know it's hard for people sometimes with lack of structure, but I think that the reason I do it that way is so that I forgot today, but I usually try to stop. I try to lock the questions right at the top of the hour or a little before the top of the hour, so that we just clean out the last ones and we don't miss anybody, because I thought, the reason I do all of this stuff, all the media production I do and everything else, is because I'm interested in education. Like, that's the only reason I'm doing all this other stuff. So the reason this one runs longer than all the other ones is, to me, it's the most important one. It's the one that I'm most passionate about, that I think is the most important, is how do we move humanity forward by us learning, all the things that we need to, and how do we accelerate that so that we have more time to do what we love to do and spend less time learning it, and so it is the most, it's what got me into media. The only reason I worked on Star Wars is so that I could bring Star Wars graphics to education. Like that is why I did it. And so the thing is that, and then when I started the Pixel Core, it was all about how do I teach people how to do it at that level, and a big chunk of why I started this whole group was how do we get people doing education and that kind of thing online. And so the reason this one runs longer than everybody else's is because the one that's the most important to me. But I also don't want it to be like, if I said keep asking questions and we left it open, I kept on reminding you that we're asking questions to fill 2 hours, we'd be here for 5. But it's also why the reason it's ragged is I don't go into the rush mode that we get into on the weekdays. And the reason it's on Saturday, by the way, is specifically so that we don't have to be rushed and we can just finish every question, in that process. Anyway, that's a long answer to that. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, can I go back to your other definition of background for a second to ask about how you mount it? What do you mount that background?
This one's just sitting on the floor. This is just sitting on the floor. But you can. It comes with hanging. It comes with little hanging points. It's just that the way my blanket and everything else is behind me, it's hard to hang it. Let me see if I can show you. Hold on. I am so tied in. Hold on. Let's see. I'll go wider. So you see these. These will just tie on to any kind of bar that you run across. You can see the light coming through on either side. There's a green screen and then a blanket. So there's a lot there on either side of that process. And so,
bringing that in closer to 4 feet, you fill the screen with it. Then that's the idea.
Yeah. So then, and also the position of my camera and the zoom of my camera is all defined by closing off that space. So, why I'm, all those things are all part of that decision, process. And, and mine's really close. Erin she has a different gray in the background and she's able to pull off a little bit wider than mine. And she looks great. What are you using for the background?
I'm using the Elastolite.
Oh yeah. So she's got it. And what are you using for lighting? Your frame looks really good.
So I have a ring light in front of me and I have a hair light somewhere back here. So
Yeah, it looks
It's
really,
all
really nice.
Seth.
Looks
It's all
terrific.
Seth.
Yeah, looks great.
It's all what?
It's all Seth, my husband. He's the brains behind the operation. I'm just
Well,
the education person.
kudos to your husband, because he knocked it out of the park. I know, it was he's done really, really well. You look great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and John.
Just curious, I saw the green screen behind there. When are you green screening? Because I haven't seen you green screen for a long time.
I just haven't taken it down. Like I put it up there. It's there. I could set it up against it, and there was no reason to take it down. But I haven't done any green screen recently. I really moved to that kind of moved to the gray, and then just never moved back to it. I just felt like it was also asking people that I was training to do something that was outside of their skill set or outside of their equipment set. And I wanted to find something that I was happy with that was simpler for them to do. So it was a little bit of that process. Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you are limited on space, I don't think the Last Light requires too much behind it. But one of the things that I had a problem with is light stands that would traditionally hold a crossbar are just a little bit too cumbersome in the space I'm in right now.
Yep.
And so auto pulls that use a spring to sort of have compression between your floor and your ceiling, those have been a fantastic addition because they have given me back whatever limited floor space I had.
Lazulite makes an attachment and a bar that you can buy. There's sometimes I've seen it as a package because it's got a metal rim to it. It's got magnets, and it'll just snap to the center of it, and it's got a single bar that goes up the back that will hold it. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. One of my spring projects is to turn this all into speed rail, but I haven't gotten that far yet. But Lazulite has an attachment for it to make it easier to mount. Last question.
Okay, and I'm going to try to dig into this. This is a little bit, for me, dependent clause word salady, because I'm trying to figure out the ideas, but I'm going to read through it and we'll see if everybody can make sense out of it. Instructors and students, mobile phone plus classroom plus university campus, AV, surveillance camera, live broadcast to YouTube and hosting students in cam, sync mutual recording and streaming real-time COVID-19 content tracking and contact tracing my video, any experience among you?
I think we all have experience in some of it, but that's pretty dense. Yeah, it's a dense question. My recommendation would be to, I know that Rush, I think we're just starting to see questions from you. You've probably been around for quite a while, but the questions are starting. For us, we have to be able to, in real time, kind of understand them. And so I think that I would make them a little bit more contextual and ask a whole bunch of questions all at one time, but rather ask one question at a time and, let them be individually managed. So I think that that's the challenge that we have with that one. But I do think, like A. Mitchell's, I think I see potential. I see potential in what you're asking. I think that that you could probably end up asking lots of great questions during the education hour. But for right now, they're hard for us to grok. In the current structure. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the top half of it can be definitely handled by Zoom, but it's the contact tracing part of it that I'm not sure what we're looking for there. But otherwise, most of it feels like it would fit within Zoom.
Yeah. John?
Did notice that he put his hands up, but just as a reminder, you have to do it before we do the audio checks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't let you.
I pay a price every time I just let somebody in that I don't do it anymore. Even people that I've known, I go, oh, I've known that person. They've been here a bunch of times and they let them in the middle without the mic checks and they sound horrible. So it's only the few times that I've made exceptions have only persuaded me not to make any exceptions. So that's why we don't make exceptions to it. It's just because, look at Andy Nako is on all the time. And then he came on and we had audio problems. Andy is like on air for like 4 hours. So I didn't do my standard mic check the day before or bring him in for early because I was like, Andy does this all the time. And then we spent 15 minutes trying to work that out. So to keep our show going, there is a window. We open it for educators, and the educators are the only ones we open it for in the last couple minutes or the first couple minutes of the next hour. To do that. So you do have to be here at the beginning of that to have that work. And then for the other shows, we're pretty hardened once we start doing the you can be pretty much a well-known entity here, and I will still not do it once we start it, because we just need people to be there. Like, we can't have that slide, because logistically, if we want to start on time, and we're going to, as a warning to everyone, I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go into the end of the year, as we get ready for making a podcast out of this, and cleaning it up. Like, I feel like we're going to keep doing this probably for a little while, and so as a result, we're going to tighten things up a little bit. AirPods will probably not be acceptable in 2021, like as a device that you're going to use to connect to Zoom. You really need a real mic. You'll need an external mic to do it. The education one will be a little different. I'm not expecting the educators to all do that right now, but during the week, I'll do that right now yet. But during the week, you will have to have a real mic. And the reason is that I spent a lot of time this week listening to our show over Makana, and just realizing how painful it was for some people to not have good audio when everybody else does. And I don't think it's fair to the listener anymore for the panelists to not spend $30, on a mic that works. Like, it's just not gonna fly. So I'm gonna be reminding people this week. Mickey's starting to do he's gonna start doing the podcast testing, and or cutting, and I'm going to be setting up the podcast stuff and everything else. But our goal will be that everyone's got a good mic, at the beginning of the year. I might be a little lax with the educators for a little bit, but then we're going to start tightening it all up, and it's really just to make sure that for someone who comes in to listen to our show, that it's a great experience and nothing hurts their ears. And Mickey's already done an incredible job of getting us all to 24 LUFS, having, compression. We couldn't do that. I wouldn't even be considering doing it if we didn't have Mickey, pulling that quality in. And so, but I think that we're going to keep on making it more and more of something that people can really listen to, and that it's really comfortable and it sounds good. So I'm just letting people know that we'll keep on tightening it. But that's why we don't do it, though. The mic check is the reason that we have the audio quality that we have. The reason it's easy to listen to for a long period of time is because of that mic check. And so that's why we don't let people into later, because they ruin everything for everyone. Anyway, thank you all. I'm always so excited about Saturday morning, where I get to hang out with all of you. And while the rest of the week is no effort, I'm excited about it most days. But on Saturday, I'm always excited to have this conversation. I learn so much, and it gets me thinking about new ways of doing things and how to do it and everything else. Every single conversation, learning from all of you. So thank you so much for participating and being part of this, and making it something you do on a Saturday morning when you could be doing other things. So I truly appreciate it. It's my favorite conversation. And I apologize sometimes when I talk too much, but it's just because I'm excited about
Thanks,
it. I
Alex.
think about it a lot.
Thanks.
Anyway, thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next week.